All right. Hey, everybody. So I'm Carlos from Because I'm Carlos. And with me, I have a guest. I have Matt from the Essential Credentials YouTube channel. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on here. Looking forward to it.
Sounds awesome. So just give me 1 second here. I'm just going to hit pause. I wanted to make sure YouTube was working. So I had a little screen going on.
There we go. Perfect.
Perfect. So what I've done is I've actually got all of Matt's information scrolling across the bottom. Technology is beautiful. I don't have to read everything. It's all there and you can follow it. Links are also in the description if you want to check out Matt's stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about, this is mostly just a conversation. I've got a couple of things we're going to talk about, but if we go off script and go whatever, you know, it can go wherever it's going to go and I'm good with it. We also got some cars to show off and we'll get chances to do that as well. So it's going to be a little fun. It could be a little all over the place, but that'll be fun. But Matt, I was looking at it earlier today and I wanted to kind of share something with you. So first of all, like I said, thanks for coming on. But the second thing is, it's been over 5 years since I did a live video on YouTube.
Wow.
I actually did. You do them once upon a time because I don't know if you remember, Google used to have Google Hangouts.
Yeah, that's what I use for our podcast, right?
That's right. Yeah. Exactly. So back in 2014, 2015 time, I actually used to do like a little, I was playing around with the idea of doing like a video podcast with my younger brother, where we did like almost like a book club for movies. The videos are still on the channel way back in the archive. Nice. And for whatever reason, some of those videos hit viral. And I talked about it in my 1,000 subscriber video. The reason why I didn't make a big deal about it was because those videos are still in the archive. And one of them is like at 980,000 views now.
Oh, wow.
So I've got 2 videos that combined are 1.9 million views that comprise most of the views of this channel.
That's pretty cool.
For whatever reason, people in other countries believe that I put full-length movies of it. It was just us talking about it, and I didn't put any copyrighted stuff on it. But for some reason, they thought that after 5 and 6 years, nobody bothered to ever give me a copyright strike. And they didn't clue in from the year 2014, 2015. But 5 years since the last from the last live video on this channel.
Okay.
So I thought it was kind of fun that it was, I didn't realize that. I just thought it was kind of funny that it would be the case. And I was like, okay, cool. Well,
that's cool.
It was maybe about end of 2018 that I started doing sports cards on here because I had left the channel a little dormant for a while. And I said, well, the thing is, I never stopped collecting. I was always doing it the whole time. But I just wasn't passionate about talking about the movie stuff anymore. I said, well, what else can I do with this thing?
Right.
So that's what got me back into the sports card side of it. But it's one of those things like I never left, but nobody knew I was here. That was
what you're doing with the channel is great. I got to give a shout out to my buddy Brent, Near Mint Musings on YouTube. When I first started doing my hockey series, he goes, hey, you got to go check out Carlos Cards on YouTube. And of course, it worked out perfect because I remember, you know, when I was collecting as a kid, very young age, Mike Madonna was, you know, he was in the Mighty Duck movie and I had cards to him. And so it was really easy to identify the cards in your channel. I'm like, oh, yeah, I know who the player is. And I'm pretty familiar, starting to learn about the 90s. And so it was really a good resource for me to go and just say, okay, what am I going to target? So, I mean, just like anybody that finds who's getting back into cards, they find a channel and they go, okay, those A-Rods are really cool. I want to go find, you know, Tony Gwynn in those. So I did kind of the same thing with Jocelyn Tebow. And, you know, I was able to find a few thanks to your channel. So it's a great resource for sure. Definitely appreciate it.
No worries. And that was kind of the hope. The thing is, and I laugh because sometimes I like to almost break the fourth wall when I do YouTube video, because I did a YouTube video where I'm explaining like, guys, this is a persona. Now, what you're seeing is if you were in the room with me and we were chatting, it's about 95% of what it is. But I do tone it down a little bit for the YouTube channel because when I have these long talking videos, I want you to hear what I have to say.
Right.
I might have a little more fun. I would crank the sarcasm level up to about 15 if we were in the same room having a pint. Different conversation. But that's part of the fun. But at the same time, when it's YouTube and I'm just talking to a camera most of the time, I'm like, no, I can't like rant and rave about certain things because I'm like, no, then you'll miss my message. You won't get what I'm trying to do. And I want to show you something. I want to teach you something. And if I talk like a normal human being at a normal volume level, there's a better chance you're going to hear what I have to say.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's always what people have to bear in mind, that it's hard to tell from a video screen what somebody's actually like when they're in the room. Mm-hmm. But there are certain people, you'll get clues. Like there's reality. Like when you look at this thing right here, this right here is still one of my favorite teams. And when I go in underneath it, I've got the Dallas Stars Stanley Cup banner. So depending on the season, I flip it. But the thing is, it's all here. This is my office where I get my things done during work. But I've also got sports stuff all around me on the other side.
Perfect.
And that's kind of where this is where I hang out and do my thing.
Right. Yeah,
But that's like everybody else. Everybody's got their little space, their little area where they can do their thing. But 99% of the time, people only see one wall at a time. This is what's going on in this wall today.
Right. No, I think that's a good thing that you're saying, though, is like with your videos, you can definitely tell that there's a lot of excitement behind the cards, but the goal of educating people on, what set their cards are coming from, where are you picking these cards up, and all those kinds of things, I think is nice to see, just kind of into the mind of a collector. When I'm making my pickup videos, the one that I put out yesterday, it's probably the most fun to make, but I try to talk about, why I collect certain players. To me, right. I think that's one of the most important things that I like to see. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's hundreds of amazing YouTube channels out there, but there's a lot of people who just say, here's what I got, thanks for watching, done. And I get that. Some people like the, 3 or 4 minutes of focus rather than 10 minutes of focus like you and I like to put out there. But for me, to enjoy making the video, I need to explain why I like the cards and why I collect the players I do. So I think that you've also done that too. It's been nice to say, okay, what kind of a guideline can I look at for the hockey side of things to follow? And you and a couple other guys have certainly been out there helping me do that. So it's been fun.
No, that's awesome. It's good to hear. But that's always going to be one of the things, is that there's an audience for almost every style. And that's been good. There are two areas that we both kind of hit on a little bit that are great, because the reason I like the YouTube thing, as far as that's concerned, is that I can kind of engage at the level that I want to. Right. It's one of those things. Some people are going to catch this live. Maybe they'll come in or they won't. That's okay. But then some of them will catch it after the fact and get a chance to see it whenever they want to. I can make videos 5 times a week if I want to. I can make videos once a month, once a year. It doesn't matter. Instagram is in the same vein. It doesn't have to be pictures every day. It doesn't have to be big, long captions and explanations. Or you can do 5 pictures a day. It's up to you.
Yeah. What do you think of me? I mean, what do you feel about the whole Instagram side of things? Because I will say that after being on there with baseball, I feel like I have more engagement in the hockey side of things. I really do. I think it's the community of people on Instagram. I've raved about it many times already, but I really feel like the hockey side of things, people seem to be more engaging. There's definitely more variety of cards. It's not just the, let me post my, essential credentials out of 5 card that's going to, rock the Instagram world. There's people posting base cards. There's people posting low end inserts. I think it's nice to see, everything across the board being posted compared to baseball, where it's just big, Trouts and Griffies and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think the kind of where you're leading to is that for hockey, it's a smaller group than some of those other sports, but it's a very passionate group. The ones that care a lot. Right. And at the same time, they can't, it would be easy to post, oh, what are my most expensive Wayne Gretzky cards? That would be kind of what you'd basically be doing. Right. But at the same time, it's like, for the other sports, I feel like they're almost competing against each other. And that's a losing play to me. Because one of the folks I follow on Instagram is Nat Turner. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. And the thing is, if you go look at what he's got, like, we're not winning. We're not playing the same game here.
No.
He sold a company. That way. Yeah, he sold a company for $2 billion. He's got an unopened box of 1954 Bowman. As going back in my background, a vintage baseball guy, that's a holy grail kind of thing. You're not touching that. You're not winning that game. It's not going to happen. There's zero chance. Hey, Brian. So that one's for you. There you go. So anyway, it's just Brian Kingsley saying, hey.
That's cool that you definitely have it highlighted a bit different than we do it on the podcast. So I have to play around with that a bit. That's cool. Yeah,
we're definitely playing around. Hey, Jeremy, how's it going? So some folks are popping in. That's awesome. But it's one of those things. You're right, though. It's a very passionate group. And the thing is, they know they're passionate because they're close-knit. It's not that many. We're not like the basketball guys where you're going to have to show LeBrons and Kobe's, and it's going to have to be big stuff. What's the Giannis RPA? You got to do it, because how else are you going to play? Because you got to, if you're going to show off, you're going to have to show off the shiny stuff, because the rest of it's too generic. It's not exciting enough.
Well, and I think that those 2 words of the whole, or maybe one word, competition, is, I don't think that's a way that, for me at least, I think a lot of the people I associate myself with, we don't look at card collecting as a competition. I think you should be just as excited about, a really cool Madonna card being posted, I should, as, getting a new Tristan Jarry rookie or a Tebow card that I don't have yet. I think it needs to be equal. And I feel like the hockey community definitely does that. that's why I think it's been so much fun for me. And it's artists that I've met there too. Man, there's some really cool artists that make goalies, especially. It's been amazing. Really enjoyed that.
Oh, there's no question. And the thing is, you've hit on the right area, because goalies is an area where there's a lot of passion for.
Yeah,
the goalie collectors are almost as insane as the actual goaltenders. Almost.
That's true.
I did root for Ed Belfour. He's out there. He's a very out there dude.
He's also in a cell somewhere too, isn't he? Or is he out now?
I'm not sure if he got there or not, but it's one of those things where the entire era that I was rooting for, my favorite era was that late 90s Dallas team. And Ed Belfour, what was great about Ed Belfour is that he was a stalwart in net. You knew what you were getting night in and night out, but you also weren't sure if he was going to get arrested or possibly, kill someone or stab someone with a skate. Everything was possible.
Yeah, he and Ron Hextall probably hung out a bit, huh?
Yeah, they were all kind of a little bit nuts, and that was kind of the issue, that you just didn't know what you were going to get at that time. Now, before I proceed, there's one thing I wanted to kind of throw out there, and this is kind of a running joke for me when I watch a lot of your videos. A lot of times you'll do a lot of different, and Matt here does the Essential Credentials, on YouTube. So you can see the link in the description, just to remind everybody in case, but they do a lot of these different podcast episodes with different themes. And you guys do a very good job hitting on these different themes and bringing folks in, which is kind of fun. But one of the things that you end up doing a lot, and it makes me laugh every time, is that you'll make references to like the 90s Facebook group. But at no time will anyone actually say what the Facebook group is, and no link ever appears anywhere. So it's like, if you know, but if you don't, you're just guessing.
Yeah, that's true too, and I suppose that's probably because the group's gotten so big.
Right.
It's a 90. I think it's 1990 through 2004 rare inserts group, and Nate, who's Tops 85 401, he and a couple other guys created the group, and it was kind of a smaller group, like maybe 300 of us for 3 years. It was really nice and engaging, and now it's over 1,000. So
I believe it.
I kind of maybe not in a mean way, but kind of disregard putting it out there, because it's gotten so big that which, when a group on Facebook is so big, it's hard to, interact and have a personable group. So yeah, that's a good point that you mentioned that. But yeah,
I just thought it was great that you guys would make reference to it show after show after show. And I'm sitting there like, I could ask, but it's going to be funnier down the road. I will, but it's going to be funnier down the road. Literally the first bullet point I put in here was ask about the Facebook group. That was the first one. I was waiting for it. It was coming.
And again, you mentioned, which you can tie back to what you mentioned earlier. You mentioned like the competition of the baseball and basketball guys.
That's right.
It at times tends to be a braggadocious competition style group, which is fine for the personality of most of those guys. Nothing against that. I think there's some amazing collections out there. I mean, it's been astounding to see the we have like this in every sport. You have these, big cards that pop up. Baseball, you got Essential Credentials, the Select Mirror Golds, the Grand Finales, that kind of stuff. I mean, those kind of things are showing up all the time. You're just like, man, this is pretty cool to just see the collections these people have amassed. But, and then you take it to the Instagram side of hockey. It's not like that all the time. It's not just like pumping out the, Gretzky patch autos, the Connor McDavid patch autos, and all these things. It's not a lot of that as much as it is just appreciating the art in the hobby in general. So it's been nice. It was a good time for me to move into hockey. I can tell you that. So.
That's right. That's fair. Now I'm going to get into it a little bit, but I want to quickly refer back to your last episode. Well, actually, let me refer to your pickups video first.
The one I just put out?
The one you just put out.
Yeah,
now, what is the deal with you and Brent having intros? Because now you're messing with me. It took me a while to figure out how to edit a damn video properly. Now we've got intros, and you got the friggin' ER theme going on.
That was awesome, man. I hope you like that. It took me a long time to make that too. I have to say I was quite proud of myself, because I rediscovered that show from when I was a kid, and the song, my dad's a producer and a writer for music, and so he has kind of taught me, that kind of stuff, how that all works. And I was listening to that song. I'm like, you know what? I've got an intro video coming together in my head, and it's definitely, it came together. I don't know, 75% of what I really wanted it to look like, but it was a good starting point, But yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I was really proud of that.
I can tell. I can tell.
Took a while.
It just made me laugh, because then as soon as Brent had an intro video, I was like, oh crap, it's going to be a matter of time. I have to come up with something, but we'll see. Now, here's the thing though. I never asked, because I've got the YouTube Premium, so I don't get any ads. So
Oh,
I don't think so, but the Essential Credentials channel is not monetized, right?
No, we don't have any ads yet. We haven't got there yet.
That's right. Yeah. No, that's okay though, because that means you won't get flagged for the music.
Yeah, right. No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's
So if you do make it, if you do blow up and get big, it's like I have enough where I do have the channel monetized. So I have to kind of think back and go, wait a minute, I can't use copyright. I actually had to take down a video once because I was trying to make a point about Mike Modano, and I found this old, like, it's grainy as hell video of Mike Modano doing an end-to-end rush. I wanted to use it as a reference of why I originally started collecting Modano in the first place, the kind of highlight that I watched back in the day. Right, and it turned out it was a good clip because it was actually his 50th goal in the first season in Dallas. Oh, wow. So it was when he scored his 50th. But it's grainy as hell. The audio sounds kind of crappy, and it's standard def, run through like a VHS 50 times. YouTube still was able to pick it up and flag it.
Wow.
So the thing is, my videos are always they always start off as unlisted, just so that I can let it run its check first, and then if it hits me up with something, I'm like, all right, pull it down, edit, fix it, put it back up.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. I'm very fortunate that, again, my dad makes music that it's like electronic jazz. I'm friends with a couple other bands or producers like Hello Meteor. It's just all instrumental. And so I've got a plan for when that comes in. Like my dad made the intro song to Essential Credentials podcast, which we had some technical difficulties of how to, like when you see podcasts and they're about to go live, they have like a timer and there's some music playing.
That's right.
I haven't figured out how to do that with StreamYard yet, but I've got some options for when that does come. And I don't expect that to happen anytime soon. I think the podcast is very 90s baseball for the most part oriented, and it's a very specific audience. So I don't think we're ever going to get, 1,000 subscribers or whatever, which is fine because I think it's more about enjoying what you're doing. But if that day ever does come, I will be prepared to ask you for advice when it comes to, make sure that kind of stuff doesn't happen. So
yeah, it's one of those things. Like, you'd be surprised. I was serious when I said, and I just put Jeremy's comment on there because Jeremy, it's true. Just trust me, it's true. 100% fact. It is a fact. And so now I'll bring me to the previous video, your last actual podcast, where you brought in Amish Dave Archer, and you guys did a great job. But I was morally offended that we talked about 90s hockey. I was like, how dare you? And also, on a related note, too much goaltender talk. Just way too much goaltender talk.
Perfect.
The goaltender's job is to prevent goals. It is to ruin joy. It is to take away fun. They are sucking the fun out of the sport. People like Warren. How dare you?
Oh, that's funny.
Just how dare you?
No, I mean, their pads are much bigger. I saw a picture yesterday where a goaltender was wearing the old pads, and then he was standing next to, he held the pads up today next to his leg, and I was just like, jeez.
That's right. Well, there was a commercial. I think it was for oil filters of all things, and it was a commercial that ran here in Canada, and everything in Canada has to revolve around hockey in some way. But they were trying to explain how good these filters were, and to explain the filters, they basically showed, these are Fram oil filters, and what they did is they brought in a goaltender whose pads were like 6 feet tall, and they were like enormous. So the guys were like shooting and just hitting pads. The guy didn't move. It didn't matter where you shot. There was nowhere to shoot.
That's funny.
And then they go, here's the competition. And they put a guy in like 1910s goalie garb where there's like all net. You can hit it anywhere you want. But even there, they joke about the size of the pads in oil filter commercials. Yeah. That's Canada in a nutshell. Right there.
Yeah. I mean, I think to kind of counter the point though of the pads, I think I've justified it as, if you look at the highlights of the early 90s, which of course I grew up as a Penguins fan. So all the, all the Lemieux and Yager and all this stuff, when they won those 2 championships back to back in the early 90s. I mean, Lemieux and some guys are making some really athletic plays, but I think the athleticism, because of the training and everything, guys are twice as fast. They shoot harder. So then the goalies have had to adapt. If they were wearing the stuff in like the late 80s, early 90s, you'd see like 8 to 10 games all the time. 8 to 10, 9 to 7 scores. I mean, it would be crazy. I think you've had, goalies have had to adapt in that sense. There's still some really high scoring games. So
there are. And the other thing is the goalies themselves got bigger. Like the goalies of the current day are physically larger.
Well, Ben Bishop, I mean, he's what,
he's a giant.
6'7", 6'8"?
Yeah, he's a giant. And that's the thing. Like, you could put standard pads on him, like scaled appropriately to his frame, and they're still gigantic. Yeah. He just takes up a lot of physical room. It's one of those things. Yeah, a lot of the old goaltenders were kind of small guys. And that was
Yeah,
kind of
they
the deal.
were. I mean, I was actually having this conversation with a friend of mine. I was saying, well, the Miracle on Ice, Tretiak, I mean, he was a small guy. He's a little guy. He wasn't very big. And then you look at some of the best goaltenders of all time. Patrick he was about what, 6'2", 6'1"?
I think it's something in that neighborhood. Something like that.
Ed Belfour wasn't very tall. Some of the greatest goalies of all time were Grant Fuhr. I mean, he wasn't huge, but nowadays, you look at the prototypical goaltenders, not many of them are very small. A lot of them are just, like you said, are getting a lot bigger, and it's evolving. The sport's evolving.
Yep.
I think all sports are. You're seeing big athletes that are doing more than just playing, basketball.
Well, I think it's also common sense. If you look at it and you draft a guy who's already kind of big,
yeah,
and then you put the pads on him, he has to move physically less just to take up more space, because he already does. Just being bigger, he takes up more space. The rest of it just helps. The rest of it just helps. So one thing I'll bring it to that podcast that you guys did. So you did a very good job building like a basic primer of the 90s inserts. You built a good one.
Kind of just comparing them to baseball, because I know our audience is like 98% baseball.
That's right. But so I'll do a little showcase first. There's a couple that you didn't hit on. There's some of my favorites. So we're gonna bring a couple of the 90s. So and one of the pickups you had, a couple of them were Donruss Priority. And good old Donruss Priority. So you had the two postcards.
Yeah. I showed the postcards.
That's right. So that one in the first day issue, which are great cards. But Donruss Priority, when you're talking that one, my favorite is always the stamp of approval.
Amen to that, dude. I was hoping you were going to grab those. These are ridiculous.
Yeah. So the stamp of approval right there, that's a classic one. And anything in the 90s where it's out of 100, give or take, is a good, solid card. So that's a good one right there. Stamp of approval from not a high-end set. And it was one of those at the Toronto Expo. They were selling boxes of that for like $30. So I remember not that long ago. So I would just buy boxes and just like try to pull guys.
I would love to open just one, just for the experience of opening a box.
The guy had cases and cases and cases. So I would go grab a couple. That was my junk wax. I would go grab a couple of boxes and pop it open. So I would pull a bunch of those cards because it was fun. And it also let me relive my childhood, because I'm like, this is when I was 97-ish. I was around 14, 97, 98. I was 14, 15. So I was in high school. These are packs that I was cracking back then.
That's cool.
So I can kind of go back in time 20 years, 22 years, and be like, yep, here we are. And then I think the best one, I pulled a stamp of approval of Teemu Selanne.
That's cool.
So it's like occasionally you'll get a lot of like the generic guys, but occasionally you'll get some names, and it's like you pull a Paul Correa, you pull a Teemu Selanne, you know who's good. Especially when you think back on that era, you know who's good.
Yeah.
Another one that's in the same vein that you guys didn't cover that is a good one as well, a favorite, was I believe it was the Leaf Limited.
Yeah.
So Leaf Limited, and so I'll use Medano as an example, but you had the different players, you had the different subsets. So Medano had 3 regular base cards at different difficulties. The most difficult being the Star Factor. So that was the last one. And then you had the Limited Exposure. So that was the parallel of the Star Factor.
Yeah.
So then we got to do the Star Factor.
Those are so ridiculous. I love those.
Yeah. So you got the nice chrome design. You got the foil, and I turned on this white light to kind of help me out a little bit with this one.
Perfect.
So you can kind of get the gist of it, and it's double-sided, so both sides.
Nice.
So right there, that was a great card. And back in the day, that's how it worked out. You see, we're getting some insight here.
I feel sad. I feel remiss, that I did not bring up my favorite goaltender of my childhood, which was Tom Barrasso. I mean, he was the man for me.
Well, Uncle Vinny's got you covered. Uncle Vinny's got you covered.
Thanks, Vinny. I appreciate that, man.
So
I'm so locked into Tebow and Tristan Jarry, because if you spread your wings too wide, you spend so much money. I just have to, narrow my focus a bit.
Well, I'm going to touch on that in a minute. I'm going to touch on that. We're going to get there, because don't think I don't have that as one of my things, but we're definitely going to chat about that. But I focus mainly on the 97, 98 because that was my favorite set. Like I literally took one of those Z folio binders and specifically did
There's one right there. Thanks to you. I love them. They're great, dude.
They're really nice. The thing is, for some of the cards, they're really good. And the thing is, they fit. Some of those late 90s for the checklist for Medano is the right size. Right. I can basically put most of the main cards. If there's something really rare, I'll keep it separate. But if it's one of the main ones, it's looking at a rainbow on that screen, on that page, looks fantastic.
I will have to say that for anybody that doesn't have one of those, they should definitely grab one. But you showed me in one of your videos recent, you had the certified mirror red, I think, with the peel on that you put in there with the penny sleeve. And that's
right.
What's really cool about those is they're big enough that if you put a penny sleeve on a card, as long as it's not one of those massive thick ones, it'll slide right in there without crinkling it, making it look different. Right. It looks great. And so big shout out to you for that one. I put all my, even the rare stuff, all my goalie cards are in there minus Tebow, and the autographs just go in a penny sleeve and they go right in there and they look awesome on the page. So yeah, appreciate that.
So Mike Canadian Cards has a different opinion on large goaltenders. He's right though. In the back in the day, Dryden was a giant. That was kind of his thing, was that he stood out amongst the other goaltenders because he was just so much, because he was athletic. He could do things, but he was also much bigger than the average goaltender of his day.
Right.
That's a big edge. It's one of those things. Sometimes those guys don't get credit because it's like a Will Chamberlain. They go like, oh, well, look how much bigger he is. Well, that's just the way it was. What do you want?
Yeah, right.
Like you couldn't get smaller to make it more fair. It's like, that's not his fault. In today's NBA, he would be a very tall guy, but he wouldn't be the only 7-footer. He would, in his day, he just towered over everybody, and that's just the way it was. It's fair or unfair. By the way, thanks for popping in, Mike. I appreciate it. So another 97, 98, and I'm not doing this to tease you, but we got to include it. You know what's coming.
Well, I mean, why do you think I didn't show it? Because I would love to have shown that card. That's stunning, man. Oh.
And it doesn't, and you can adjust it and play with the angles and angles and angles and just see endless rainbows on it. Now, the thing is, to be fair, this came into my possession because there was a Medano collector who's been selling out for a while.
I remember you mentioned that in your videos.
Yeah. And the thing is, I have to have a chat with him because like the stuff, it seems like every week he's throwing out like 16-year-old me, like that's a grail. That's a grail. That's a grail. And I'm like, dude, how many do you have? Because he would just throw out like bomb after bomb after bomb. Patches would be like really nice patches, number to jersey number cards. It's like, so like he went for after the creme de la creme. Right. He would have been my nemesis back in the day, basically.
Oh man, like, it's funny. You always have one, man. There's always somebody that's chasing same cards you are, even now.
Yeah, it was one of those things where like when you went through the whole thing, I just remember that era because I kept collecting, but there was an era where I slowed down. It's like I was in school. I was basically going to university. It's like it's like beer money takes priority. But I never stopped collecting. It was one of those. So what happens, instead of buying a bunch, I'd troll eBay once in a while and I'd buy a card here, a card there.
Yeah.
So I still kept it. The train never stopped fully. It slowed down for a while.
Right.
And then when the time came and I was in the working world, I was able to go, all right, let's put the train back up, get some more coal in there, and let's speed this thing back up.
Right.
But then I focused for a little while. But I had gotten bored and burned out. I never stopped collecting Medano, but I moved on to just the certified autos. I thought I would just focus on that for a while. Right. So that's why I say we're going to talk about the focus part of it, because I'm very interested in how a collection is curated. That kind of thing interests me, because it's not, if it's just the dollar amounts, well, guess what? I could do this really easy, and I'm only going to need one episode. I'll get Nat Turner on here. He'll show me some 52 tops manuals and we're done.
Yeah.
Like
I don't need the green PMG Jordan. And it's like, all right, we're done here.
Yeah, we're good. And it's like, just show me how much money you have. What? You sold a company for $2 billion? Yes. Thank you. We know. We got it. The thing is, I'm not knocking him, but it's just even in his situation though, I wouldn't just be like, oh, show me another $1 million card. Show me another $500,000 card. It's got to be like, all right, man, you have more money than God. All of eBay is basically a buy it now for you. Can you explain to me the why? There's got to be a why to some of this.
Well, no matter who you are, there has to be some kind of a focus. He's not out there buying everything up, but no, you're right. That's you have to have something.
That part is more interesting to me than the fact he can afford to buy it now and just about anything he wants.
That's true. Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like, well, yeah, I know, dude, I'll look at your Instagram. I know you have money. I'm not concerned. I'm not worried about you financially, but there's got to be a rhyme or reason to it.
Definitely.
So I'll do one more here as far as the 90s are concerned. One more we'll finish off with, because this was a good one too. Good old Bowman's Best.
Oh, I know. That's number 2 on my I already know what one you're going to show. So the last one you showed is number 1. That one is number 2 for me. Thank you for that.
These right here are fantastic. Like it was a great year for it. The regular one just looks so plain by comparison.
Right.
And then the regular refractor looks good. And these are out of 100 as well. So you got to have your atomic refractor. And then again, you can play with the light on this one. You can have some real fun just looking at it.
I do think that's really funny too, because before I ever really watched, I think I might have watched one of your videos. I hadn't seen that or the platinum mirror gold, and when I was just looking through Jocelyn Tebow cards, those everything that was out there, because there was the gold was on Beckett, this one right here. The gold was on one of the Beckett marketplaces, and for a second I thought it was the card, wasn't. But so anyway, once I was able to pick that up, I knew that the platinum gold would be number one, and then I saw the atomics, which funny you showed that off, because I would have loved to have compared it to baseball. Baseball did that pattern on their 98 set, not their 99 set, which is what that set is designed after. So baseball just sucked when it came to 99. Their atomic refractors just look like refractors, really. So, yeah, the hockey nailed it in that department, and those two cards are I'm awaiting them to show up patiently on eBay at some point, hopefully.
Yeah, and it's a patience thing. And I've had a conversation with some folks offline where they talk about, and they'll watch now, they'll catch some of the videos where I've done, and they're like, how did you? It's like, look, number one, I'm buying from some Medano collectors who are cashing out. So I'm getting to pick the cream of the crop. Yeah. They've decided they want to cash out. So I'm getting the opportunity now to do what I couldn't do back then, because now I can be like, yeah, I'll make you an offer. Are you comfortable with this? Yeah, I'm good with that. Great. Because I make an offer every time. I don't just pay the buy it now. Because generally speaking, they're willing to let it go for a better price than what they're showing. They're just like, and the thing is, this guy's got to be sick of me, because I have literally bought like 50 cards, and all of them are like great card, great card, great card.
Well,
one after another.
Sick of you, or he knows that he's going to be able to sell them no matter what.
So it's an easy sale, because I'll make an offer. I'll bid it strong, but at the same time, it's like, look, I'm not going to pay like absolute top dollar, but I'll bid strong on it. Why not? And if you don't want it, just counter me.
I'm sure he just lets you spread it out a little bit, like you can offer a little bit less because you're buying such big bulk at the same time. If I was a seller and I was selling out my A-Rod collection, which God forbid I'd ever have to do that. But if I did, I want it to go to somebody, who I know is going to love it as much as I did or do. But also, if I have a guy that's willing to buy, multiple, you sometimes make an exception for that. So yeah, well, that's definitely helped.
The eBay system is a blessing and a curse now, because you used to be able to figure out who your nemesis were. You used to be able to see who the winning bidders were.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
The Bowman's Best is 98.99. That's the season that they released that set. That was 98.99, right at the end of the 90s. For me, that little window between 96, 97, when you got the select certified mirrors, and then 98.99, which you still have like that atomic refractor. I loved Upper Deck that year. Upper Deck, they did some fun with the quantums, with some of the inserts, and they were just really good. And I've got like almost all of them. I'm missing the Frozen in Time Quantum 2, which is out of 25. That's a tough one. Think 98.99. That thing's been in the ether for 21 years. Yeah, I'm sure it's out there, but it's a tough one. And then the one of ones.
Those are impossible, man.
I know the location of one. I just it's hiding in Sweden somewhere. So just like I gotta go across the ocean, and it's one of those things where there'll be a time, it's gonna go. I like this. Don't worry, it's one of those things where people usually catch it after, and I just wanted the excuse to have a nice conversation and start doing a couple of these on the channel. And it's one of those things I'm not worried about. If I was worried about views, there are ways to get views.
Yeah,
and they're not necessarily the things you want to be doing.
You gonna sell your soul for that or not? That's what you got to ask yourself.
Well, listen, I right now these days, Matt, I'm like clearing easily $15-$20 a month on this. Come on. That's like big money, buddy.
That's one Madonna card a month right there for free.
With shipping, no, it's not.
Yeah, well,
I got to save it up for the second month to get the shipping.
Yeah, that's true.
We get murdered on shipping here. If you ever want to laugh, if you ever want to have a legitimate chuckle, go to eBay and look up a normal card, just any normal card.
Yeah.
And that does allow shipping to Canada. Go find yourself a real Canadian postal code, punch it in and just see what happens to the shipping price. Boom.
Wow.
Like there'll be $5 cards that have $15-$20 shipping immediately, because they use the eBay system, because it's got custom. It does. We'll clear customs. I'm like, on a $5 card, how much do you think customs is?
Yeah, that's crazy.
By the way, spoiler, customs is our tax for the province I'm in. That's 13%. So on a $5 card, it's 65 cents. And eBay will charge me $10 custom. And I'm like, you're just taking the money. Don't lie to me.
Yeah, no, I've it's coming from Canada to here has actually been pretty good. You know, when I think I've only found one seller who charged, I think it was $12 American total. But what I did is he had a ton of cards that were ending within a few days of each other, like some Padman, and which was great. I got a Patrick Waugh Padman for like $8 American because nobody wanted to pay the $12 shipping, but I bought a lot of it. I think I bought 8 or 9 cards at the same time. And it all started because I wanted a David Abisher refractor.
No,
and I was able to get that 99-cent card. I'm like, what else can I get? So it worked out to my favor.
No, for sure. That has actually been one of the selling points for me of COMC. It's not like COMC is the greatest platform in the world, but there are some cards that do end up on there, like some good ones. And you can make offers on it from time. But the real thing, the real boon is the shipping. It's that I can stack it up, wait until the moment is right, and then ask for the shipping. And right now I pulled the trigger on a shipping thing just the other day, and I'm getting 135 cards in. So it's going to be a good one. I paid good money for that shipping still, but compared to what it would cost me on eBay, it's not even close. It's not even a discussion point.
That's good. That's interesting. I'm sorry. I saw this comment from Autograph Guy, and the second one there is, hey man, whatever gets views, you know. John's a really nice guy though. I know that. My friend Tony in Sitka here, he's a big vintage guy, and he and John have hit it off pretty good. So that's pretty cool. But
that's good.
So I have a question. You know, like I don't think I know the answer to this. Why Madonna? Other than the highlight, like what was that what set it off for you? Seeing him score 50 goals in a season, or was there?
It wasn't so much the 50 goals in a season as that you have to think when he scored 50 goals in the season was the 93 season. Mm-hmm. So at that point, Madonna was born in 1970, so he was 23 years old. And you've got this guy who can skate like lightning, and he was doing the end-to-end rushes was a regular occurrence at that time. That's before he was encouraged to become a two-way forward. That's before Ken Hitchcock came on and said, hey, if we want to win, you got to become a two-way, because with your speed, with your skill, you could become one of the best two-way forwards in the game. So it's one of those things that if he had focused on his offense, let's put it this way. He scored 61 or 62 goals. I forget the exact number, which ties him with Guy Lafleur. And that's with him de-emphasizing offense for the majority of his career. He held back his offensive capability. He only scored the 50 goals once. He never scored 40 goals again.
So that's pretty impressive. I didn't know that.
But he was consistent. Awesome. He would score 32, 35, 38 goals year after year after year after year. So give me 1 second here. Autograph guy? Yes, I have. He was a nice guy. We had a quick chat, and I was getting a jersey autographed. So in addition to some of the stuff, I've got a bunch of autograph stuff in the room, but I've got like 3 or 4 autographed jerseys over the years that I've collected from Modano. But the dream, if I ever have money to literally waste, I would probably go to Maigret and get one of the game used. I would go buy a game used jersey. But they're about 7,500 now, so I'm a little shy. I'm a little light.
I don't know. That's pretty steep, man.
But they have one from the 99 Stanley Cup is one of the ones they've got right now. That's a $7,500 one. Now, mind you, they lost that Stanley Cup. That kind of hurts my soul a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. I think for me personally, I think it just a dream is just to have one of those Nordique Thibaut jerseys, just, you know, replica type thing.
No, I get you.
That would be really fun. I've heard that Jocelyn's a super nice guy.
I believe it. Hockey players, for the most part, it's rare to meet. I tease about the Belfour, but El Belfour did a signing. Right. And I don't know if he was sedated, but Ed Belfour seemed reasonably human during it. Like I was disappointed. I was hoping he would attack someone or something. Not a single individual was harmed, as far as I could tell.
He probably enjoys interacting with the fans and stuff. You're right. I mean, most of the interviews that I've seen on YouTube and, you know, post-career videos of players, hockey players seem a little bit more down to earth, even the goalies, believe it or not. Yeah. So that's good. No,
their job is to be crazy at net. Day to day, when they're amongst the normal people, they'll usually control themselves a little bit.
They just blend in.
Yeah, just blend in. Just regularly blend in with it. But that's the thing. It's that when I got the chance to see those highlights at that time, I never had a close affinity to the Maple Leafs because that would have been the local team. That would have been the obvious choice. But here's the thing. A lot of people look at like the Toronto area, you know, the GTA. And the thing with Mississauga is weird because we're a suburb of Toronto. But we're a suburb of Toronto with 750,000 people in it. So most suburbs are not that size. Right. And then if you look at the land mass that we have in this suburb, it's bizarre. I can get in a car from where I am right now. I'm at the corner of the city. I can go to the airport, hit 40 minutes on the highway, and still be in city limits. We're a suburb. A
so you should
suburb.
be your own city, is what you're saying.
Well, the thing is, we are a city. But that's
like separate.
But it's become a running joke where it's like we're a suburb connected to Toronto with 700,000 people, more landmass than we could possibly know what to do with. All this space and all this thing. The airport is technically within Mississauga, not Toronto. Everybody thinks it's Toronto. We don't have a daily newspaper, and we don't have a radio station. Yeah, so we're not an entity. We're just considered part of Toronto, even though we're over here in a suburb.
Crazy, man. That's crazy. Yeah, it's definitely different living there. I mean, I'm in Alaska, so I'm partly in Canada and partly in the United States, I guess, if you look at it that way.
Yeah.
Kind of both.
But it's one of those, this has always been a weird thing. It never bothered me. I've lived here for a lifetime. It's one of those things where you just kind of get used to it, and it's comfortable. Like I've been in this condo for 6 years. It's very comfortable. It's a quiet area. It's relaxing. Everything I need is within walking distance of me. Right. And it's one of those things. It's like, it is. Here, like Autograph Guy knows. Look. So many amenities, man. Like
we have none of that stuff where
it's too much. So, but that's it. It's always been a complex around here, which always makes it fun. It's always been a little odd. Mm-hmm. But that's just the way it works out. Like, what are you going to do? So let's do something here. I wanted to kind of lay the groundwork, chat it for a little bit, but I know you got some cards. I know you want to show some cards. What do you got? What do you want to do?
I mean, I tried to grab cards that are not present in the baseball world.
Sure.
I mean, I was, again, I talked about it on the podcast a few days ago. I've really enjoyed picking up cards that I don't have of Alex Rodriguez. There are not many that are left other than like the mega, earth-shattering ones you see posted. But I've had a lot of fun, going and because I collect one modern player, a guy that just recently retired that's got the same last name as me. And then, of course, Tebow from the 90s. Geez, where do I start? I mean, here's a good example of a hockey insert that is not in baseball. It's from Summit, and it's the In the Crease. It's the parallel version out of 600. I just think these cards, I mean, I love the shine. I mean, one thing that I've been doing in baseball is picking up cards that have that visual appeal. And, this was like a $4 card, but you got everything going on with it. It's got the embossing. It's got the shine. It's, of course, goalies, as I mentioned in my videos and podcasts. Goalies have art and style already on the card with the way that they're dressed up. And that's what appealed to me when I was 5 years old and wanted to be a goaltender. Maybe I was crazy a little bit when I was a kid and I just didn't know it.
Now, one thing that I think came out in a conversation, because Jeremy, who was here previously, does his own live show, Sports Card Live, which is a great live show. He does really good. He gets to talk with a lot of industry insider folks. So he's got a couple of connections.
Oh, he talked with the Leaf guy, didn't he?
He's going to be. That's going to be coming up. That's going to be coming up on Saturday. Good. So, and he's an entertaining dude. I don't know if you've ever checked him out. Like, he's interesting.
All right.
And I think last time he was doing it, I think he said he was spending $1 million a month on cards. Like, he was buying cards and spending a clip of $1 million a month. So here's a guy who can speak to the matter. Obviously, he's in the business. He produces his own cards, but he's a character. So it's one of those things. It's always interesting to see what's going on in his head, why he's buying what he's buying. And that's generally where the conversation goes. Right. But the reason I'm bringing it up is that one of the things that comes out about those conversations is that when they were discussing so it wasn't so much him, but in another conversation with the previous owner of In the Game, they were talking about those, the goalie mask cards.
Yeah.
And he was talking about the difficulties in getting licensing for certain goalie mask cards because of the caricatures drawn on it. And you'd have to hit the different copyright holders. You have a license to put it on the mask, but you don't necessarily have a license to put the mask on a card.
Well, that's interesting because, this is from Leaf. This is a true 101 masked men card. I remember you saw this in a video. I mean, this is a really, this card has a story and a half. I won't say who it was that I bought it from, but it took a lot of work to get it here. See if I can get my camera to focus again. I had to do like a bank transfer through Wells Fargo and do all this crazy stuff just to get him the money. I wish he would have had a PayPal. It would have been easier. But this card has the Blackhawks mask in detail, you know what I mean? But then they have him in his old Blackhawks masks, which looks, let's see if I can get a picture of it. This is a complete package card right here. You see, so that's got the old, his first Blackhawk mask, and it's got that Blackhawks, logo type thing on the top of his head there. They have that card or that mask pictured, and it's all like taken off. He's just got like a white and red mask. And so I know exactly what you're talking about. I looked at the card when I first got into hockey. I'm like, what is this? But I appreciate the Leaf products. I like what they do, and I like the variety that they bring and the memorabilia cards and whatnot. I've been able to have been really, really fun. I mean, goalies are the best when it comes to memorabilia cards, man. You got the pads, the blockers, the glove. I mean, of course, the jersey, but it's been really fun to, step into that world, because in baseball, I don't want to hate on them too much, but baseball, a little, napkin patch of a jersey is just the most boring thing you could ever want on a baseball card.
Well, most of the uniforms don't really have a lot going for them. Like, there's not a lot you can do in some of them. You can try. Right. Some of them have more patches than others. It's like Yankee pinstripes. Like, what are you going to do? Like, I don't know, man.
Mean, at least there's something in that, like almost every Tebow that I have has some kind of, dual coloration to it, because it's more interesting. And I like that on all the hockey cards, Upper Deck, does a great job of this and stating that they actually wore them in a game. Whereas I just looked at I collect Tyler Glass now, and there's this really cool card that just popped up, and I'm like, okay, let's see what it says on the back of this patch. This patch was not worn in any specific game or event. I'm like, then this might as well just put a manufactured patch in there. It's stupid.
That's right. Exactly.
It bothers me because I really want the card, but now I don't at the same time. Like, this is worthless. Like, I love the hockey cards, man. Even a basic jersey, they tend to sell better, and I can see why. They're actually worn in a game. So
that's fair.
That's been one of my biggest revelations coming into the hockey world is, okay, I can love memorabilia cards, even the basic ones still. So it's cool.
Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of segue off of 3 different things. So we're going to start off with the first one. Yeah, okay. We're going to try to do this. Here we go. Get ready for this. This is a triple segue. Rarely done. Triple segue. Right. Segue number 1. Since we're talking about the Leaf cards, one of the things that current Leaf has is that they're not licensed.
Right.
And obviously baseball has that too. Now, here's the thing. I'll speak for myself personally. I really love some of the select sets that are coming out of Panini right now. Like, some of that stuff just looks fantastic. I don't really care that it's not licensed aesthetically. Just the look of the card is good. And the fact that it's lower priced because it's unlicensed is not, to me, it's a feature. It's almost like it's underappreciated. But what do you think about the unlicensed cards?
Well, that's great. I love that you brought that up, because until recently, I discovered, you guys can go watch my last video and understand why I picked Tyler Glass now of all the players. But I have to bring him up because I've been able to pick up some really beautiful unlicensed baseball cards, and I really hated them. Like, I saw A-Rod's cards of him in a Mariners jersey, and the Mariners hat is wiped clean, and I'm like, this is just, I can't do it. But collecting a modern player who's still playing, obviously a guy that's playing now, it's definitely allowed me to say, okay, let me take another peek at this. I wish he had his jersey had the name, and the hat had the Rays logo and everything on it. But I will say that the designs, oh man, I can't wait for this one. I bought this tie-dye. I know that you collect baseball from this year too, right? The Select. I think I've seen you pick up a few.
Yeah, I've been a big fan of the design of this most recent one. It's just like I said, the aesthetic. It works. And then I look at the price for what I'm getting. Like, I look at the card, I get to enjoy the card, and I get to pay basically a bargain basement price, and I get to have some quality players.
Exactly. And for player collectors, it's huge. I think if you're collecting a big rookie, maybe, you're bummed if you have to settle for a select, rainbow or select green of your favorite rookie, or like a Bichette, for instance, who I enjoy watching the guy play. But it's not as desirable, but when you're collecting a guy who's not a rookie, Glass now, even Trout for that matter, I think you kind of can get by that knock on it. And so, Brent and my other friend, Ryan Scripter, Mariner collector on YouTube, the 3 of us have a chat going, and I keep telling him how bad of an influence they are, because Brent, he's very artistic, and he takes these amazing pictures of his Kyle Lewis cards and his Garner Minshew cards from Select.
I've noticed those recently. Yeah. I've seen a lot of Minshew. He showed me that, like, this one, that tie-dye parallel, and I was like, oh my gosh. And literally the next day, a Glass now popped up. I was like, yes, I was just can't wait to see this. So, that's what I'm saying. What you're getting visually for the price is absurd.
Yeah.
It's like, if you can accept it, to a certain degree, like, it's not bad. It's tough. It's one of those things. And the thing is, I understand. I do prefer, I would like there to be less exclusives. I would like more I would love for Select to be able to produce cards in these other sports. Let them make the cards, even if it's just the 1 or 2, brands per year. Let them make a Select set. Let them make a Prism set. Imagine if it was licensed and they were able to just do what they want to do.
I think competition breeds creativity. When I had Jean on the podcast, the former Fleer designer, she goes, it's really unfortunate that there's so many creative artists out there now, but those artists don't get to spread their wings as much as they would be able to if they were making licensed cards. If you had, Panini, hate them or love them, if you had Panini in on hockey and you had Topps in on hockey, oh man, I mean, with them, those 2 plus Upper Deck, you would get some really creative looking sets and the art would really come forward. Just imagine that, like baseball, they did this, retro finest design. Imagine if they brought one of those back for hockey. Like, oh man, that would be amazing, with the current players. So lots of fun ideas, but they won't come to fruition, unfortunately.
Well, that's right. I would love to let them have a shot at it. It's one of those things where, like I said, it could be a limited license, because back in the day they did, where they're like, we're not going to let you have a full product lineup, but pick a couple of sets and you can do that. We'll let you do that. Awesome. That'd be enough.
I'm surprised Panini hasn't tried doing the hockey, though, to be honest with you, because I think maybe they just don't think there would be much of a market, but especially like the goaltenders and stuff, depending on the licensing on the masks. I mean, I feel like there's enough art right there in itself that, like Brent says with the catchers, he says he collects, he's the Minnesota, Garvey, I think, Matt Garvey.
I think I know who you're talking about. The name escapes me. I think I know who you're talking about.
The Twins catcher. I mean, you're not going to see the logo, but he's got all the colors and the gear on. I'm like, you know what? Hockey players in general have so much gear and colors on their jerseys. They can make it work, I think. So
see, Uncle Vinny's on the ball here, because I was about to mention this. So he's already on it. 13-14, they did make a Select set. So there is a hockey 13-14 set. And it's actually really good looking. Yeah. Like the prisms and all that are really awesome. I've been very impressed, although I haven't seen a lot of them. Like, it seems like the supplies the base card is easy enough to find. The prism is probably easy enough to find. I've only seen certain of the parallels. I've been able to get a couple for Jamie Benn, but for Modano, I've had trouble locating. I know it's out there, but I haven't really seen it.
I am missing one of the prisms, the gold out of 10 for Burroughs. I know only 2 or 3 have ever sold on eBay. So I'm sure the rest are all in personal collections, but I'm hoping the day comes where that gold shows up, because I love the way those look, for sure. That was fun to be able to dive into that for a couple of years. And when I got into collecting Burroughs, that was kind of my mini foray into the modern collecting world of figuring out the whole Upper Deck and how all those parallels work, the high gloss, the clear, what are they called? Clear something, the ones that are see-through.
Yep.
The rainbow shine they did a couple years back. I mean, there's some really cool things they did. And so, that was definitely fun to kind of track those down, for sure.
I like that autograph guy is sitting on the fence. I wish he would make up his mind about what he thinks about the players. Like, honestly, man, could you get off the fence and be clear? Like, what do you actually think? You can't be ambivalent about this.
Yeah, I thought from that comment, I would think that Jamie Benn's a goalie, but apparently I know he's not. But
Jamie Benn, here's the thing about Jamie Benn. I like the guy from the perspective of, I got a chance to see him earlier in his career. He has talent, but it's weird. This is going to be a very weird sentence for me to say. He is a former scoring champion who never met his potential. He won a scoring title and did not meet his potential. He is a guy who is a big guy who can, he can be physical. He can fight for himself a little bit,
right? But
for some reason, and had a scoring touch, but you wouldn't know about it the last couple of years because he struggled. And he had a year where he scored more points than the year he's got a scoring title and still hasn't met his potential, but he's captain of the team. It's all weird. It's all weird. I can never get my head around it. I have all the Jamie Benn rookie cards, all the base rookie cards, and a bunch of the parallels. In his rookie year, he has 100 cards. I have 60 of them.
That's pretty good.
But I'll probably get closer to it. I'll never finish it, but I'm not worried about that. But the thing is, I pick it up because it's fun, because he was the next guy. For my team, he was the next guy. Right. But the thing is, I'll always look at him I know why Modano never met his offensive potential, but he was a great two-way player. I watched him play great defense. So I understood what he was doing. and they were a consistent contender year after year after year after year.
Right.
That window was long where they were contenders.
Mm-hmm.
And, everybody likes to play the what if game. And I always like to tease my buddies because I go, I can beat you at the what if game. And they're like, how? It's like, if I had the ability, all I need you to let me change the outcome of 4 games in the history of my franchise. 4 total.
That would be fun.
Just 4 in the history of the franchise. Just 4.
Yeah.
And here's how it would work. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
97-98. They played the Detroit Red Wings in the Western Conference Final because in that era, it was the Dallas Stars, the Detroit Red Wings, and the Colorado Avalanche, basically bludgeoning each other year after year. It was always one of them, always fighting to get out of the West.
Right.
Whoever got to the West would either be so dead tired they would have trouble with basically New Jersey, or they would face someone who's not New Jersey and bludgeon them because they were so hardened that it was basically the East was a pushover if it wasn't New Jersey.
Yeah.
That's what happened for most of the 90s, especially that latter portion.
Right.
So 97-98, they play Detroit. They lose to them in 6. This was the second of Detroit's back-to-back cups. So I need to change 4 outcomes, I said.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
Maybe game 6, I win game 6. We take it to 7, I win game 7. I'll take my chances in the Stanley Cup Finals. Because that year, I think they got to play Washington, and Detroit swept them in 4 after having to fight Dallas in 6. I like my Dallas team fresh there, facing a Washington Capitals team.
Yeah, you guys are probably going to win that.
The next year, they did win the Stanley Cup. They beat Buffalo in 6. The year after that, they played New Jersey in the final and lost to them in overtime in game 6.
So
I said,
I see where this
2
is
more
going.
games.
Yeah.
So best case scenario, I have 3 straight Stanley Cups. Worst case scenario, 2 out of 3.
That's a good point.
I only need to change 4 games.
Yeah,
4 games.
If you gave me that question before I came on, I could answer that question. But can I start with last night's game against the Canadians? I'm kidding.
You're aiming the buddy. I'm putting my team in the finals or winning the finals. You got to aim a little higher.
I know. It's fresh on my mind.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get Jari in the net finally after that last game. That's my only little nugget that I'm hoping will happen. But
I always find that a fascinating exercise because it's like, well, just think about that. Over a 3-year span, I only need 4 games. And we're talking the difference between they won the cup, they were a great team, they won the cup, and a dynasty.
Well, I think I could answer that question for the Mariners. How about beating Cleveland 2 more games in 95 and getting to the World Series? I have to feel like they would have beat the Braves in 95. I think it was. I feel like they would have beat them. But, that's how it is, man. I think the thing that keeps sports so exciting for all of us is this unpredictability. If you would have told me that the Penguins would be down 2-1 against the Canadians, who were under 500 all year, I'd laugh at you. Like, no, we're going to sweep them in 3 games. So, that keeps us watching, keeps us captivated, and hopefully, gives us something exciting to talk about. If not, cry about.
That's fair. But here's the thing: at least playoff hockey's fun. It's one of those. It's fun to watch. Like it's a great diversion. It's fun to watch. It's the players care. They're trying. So it's one of those deals. It's like, what are you gonna do, man? Like that's the way it is. See, and Jeremy knows my pain. Like this has been the most frustrating era of Dallas hockey. I have to occasionally like nostalgically think back. I remember when my team was a contender every year. I remember when I legitimately could say we have a chance. Right. Now it's like, I'd like to make the playoffs. Making the playoffs would be pretty great in a 16-team playoff. That'd be awesome. Could we make the playoffs? That'd be good.
Hey, at least you set your expectations correct, man. That's huge. Because if you had those high hopes of a championship every year, you'd be sorely disappointed.
Those eras went. Unfortunately, the whole Marty Turco era and the thing is, Marty Turco was great. He was great. I enjoyed watching him play. He was a great player, and it's one of those. It just never coalesced the same way again. Belfour was just a difference maker. Like I knew what I was getting from Ed Belfour every night, and Turco could bring it. But by the time he came, that team wasn't the same. No,
I mean, a goal. It's interesting. Goaltenders can only look as great as the team that's in front of them. Sometimes, you know what I mean. You're not always gonna. Yeah, maybe a Carey Price. He's a guy that's carrying a subpar team because he's a difference maker out there. You put Carey Price on the Washington Capitals, or you put Carey Price on a team that's way up there, like third or fourth seed, they become the best team in that division. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, so that you're it's well said. You get a goaltender like Belfour on a team, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, we got a legitimate shot. Plus the skaters that are around us. So.
I was gonna say the thing about that era that made it so much fun was that our nemesis were all great. That Detroit team was great. That Colorado team was great.
Yeah, they were.
But then you look at Dallas. It's like, well, what did Dallas say? Well, Modano is almost a 600 goal scorer. Brett Hall is a 700 goal scorer, and we had Joe Newendike, who's a 500 goal scorer. Yeah, that was on that team too.
That was
3 Hall of Famers plus the Hall of Fame goaltender.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That's what I mean. Like they weren't slouches, but they were playing against the analogy I use to my buddies is the thing you have to remember, because sometimes they forget. You know, we're all getting a little older. our memory starts to slip a little. And I said, guys, do you not remember the late 90s? He goes, what do you mean? I said, guys, they were leviathans. They were like ancient monsters fighting each other to the death. It was like Godzilla versus Mothra every single year.
That's funny.
There was no bad. All those teams were all legit. And if they had been in the East, they could have all ruled. They would have all dominated.
Yeah.
They were just so good.
Funny. Yeah. It's interesting. Interesting you bring that up. Yeah, it's a good point. Because my team wasn't very good in the late 90s. The Penguins never really contended for much. And then they were decent, but they never were championship material. Obviously, they run into the other Leviathans of the East, aka the Devils, but interesting.
Dr. Exclusive is correct. And Darian Hatcher was the captain. He was a tough bastard.
He was on the Penguins as well. I remember earlier in his career, he was correct.
I believe that's right. I think that's right. Yeah. But that dude was tough. That I understood why he was captain. That guy was tough, and he could handle himself. But that was just the era. Now, you ready for segue number 2?
All right, let's hear it.
All right. So we've already kind of discussed this and brought it about, but let's talk about this. You have a lot of different player PCs. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those that we talked about, the unlicensed and how they can provide value for these different player PCs and how that's helped you branch into some of the modern. Mm-hmm. You've been able to do it. See? Segue. Yeah. We did it. So now here's the thing, though. Now you've got all these different player PCs. It's tough to keep going and going and going and going and going because at a certain point, you can't have too many player PCs because it spreads the wealth too much. So then you keep chipping away at all these things and accomplish nothing. So it gets really hard at a certain point.
In a way, well, it depends on what are you trying to accomplish? What's the ultimate goal, know? And I think for me, like for the players that I like in hockey, Jocelyn Thibault, I like picking up random goalie cards, but I have to limit myself. So just wait till the National next year. I'll come back with a whole, new folio binder full of goalie cards. But, Thibault and Burrows, on a given day, there are 2 to 5 new cards per day of those players. And all of them I have typically. So I've kind of hit a wall with both of those. So my hockey collection is very – and so then, okay, what can I do to keep it fresh? Well, Tristan Jarry, once he becomes our starting goaltender and a star, which he will, that allows me to target a modern hockey player.
Sure.
But he's got, I've been able to pick up and lucky enough to get all of his rookies. And so now I'm like, okay, he's not really in much. If he gets another set or 2, which he should because he's an all-star, that would be great. But I'm kind of like, unless I venture off into goaltending again and just start picking up cool-looking cards, I'm really kind of at a stopping point, which is fine, right? So then when I do get a card, it's more exciting. So that's why I've kind of said, okay, I'm taking the pressure off of like maintaining my Alex Rodriguez collection. I mean, I'm at like 1,200 almost, and I've got most everything I've ever wanted. Okay. What am I going to do to keep it fresh? Pick a modern baseball player, and the Mariners love them as much as I do. There's nobody on there that makes me excited like watching Tyler Glasnow pitch, so that's why I picked him. So there you go. There's my explanation for my PCs. There's no more Ankiel cards that are popping up. I've got like 1 left that I really, really want, and so now I'm just kind of picking and choosing, It's been fun.
So the main thing is obviously to keep it fresh. And that's the thing with player PCs. It's just to keep it fresh. I collect Ben, but it's one of those things where I'm very selective. I focused on those rookie cards for a while because it was easy to focus on one specific year. And now it's just if I see something really cool. Yeah. Because it's not like I'm picking up a Ben every mail day. I don't. I specifically wait for the moment that there's something kind of cool. And then I go and pick up that piece and then I add that to the collection. It's more selective than anything else.
For sure.
Yeah, Modano's just easy right now because a lot of times I can find there's 3,500. If I stick to Canada only, there's 3,600 on eBay right now. Right. So when I go do the search, there's 3,600 lots. Find something you like.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think has kept, like, if things really do dry up for me for hockey is being able to find base cards. Like, I printed off this trading card database, much as I hate that place. No offense to anybody that loves it. Mm-hmm. Printing off like a 99 2000. Like I've got his like Thibault's complete checklist, and I just kind of go through and I just check off the cards that I have. And so when things do kind of dry up for me, I still have a lot of base cards left of Tebow to get. I'll go in here and I'll say, okay, let's go on to some of the different sites to pick up cards. And okay, I need that one. Boom, add it to the cart and just pick up some base cards. That keeps things fresh for me too. Obviously, that's not, people don't want to see mail days on YouTube of base cards, which is fine. But it definitely keeps things fresh for me. And so I did that in case things really dry up across the board, which hasn't happened yet, thankfully.
I think that's fair. I think it's one of those things where one of the things that has kept me, because this is a conversation that I have had offline with folks. They're like, well, how can you still keep going? Because I have been collecting bandana for 25 years. It's like, how can you still keep going? It's like, well, I'll take little breaks here and there. Right. I'll still keep collecting. I'll go, and that got onto the Instagram, so I'll do this one.
That's awesome.
And it's like, I still have interests. I still have goals. I still have little things. I'm not doing this every day. But this to me is an iconic hockey card. And even PSA in their set registry has a set registry for this that is part of the Mount Rushmore of hockey cards. They consider this to be one of the big four, not even the Howe rookie. This, the Orr rookie, the Wayne Gretzky rookie, and I believe it's a George Vezina tobacco card. Those four are the four that they consider to be the Mount Rushmore. And I can't disagree. It's because this here is Gordie Howe's 52 Topps Mantle. It's not his rookie, but this is the card. This was the first top set. This is the card.
It's huge, man. That's awesome.
So it's like, you know what? I'll get the authentic altered, which is code for like it's trimmed. Like I can tell. Like it's not hard to see.
But I mean, it was an original printed card at one point. It's not like it's some redone card with his autograph on it, which would be
as long as it's disclosed and it's very clear right on it, which it is, and that was my most important criteria. I'm like, I'm not going to be buying like a high end version of this.
Right.
It's like even if I wanted to, it's like I'm not going to expend that kind of money for it. But
I hope not.
It's in my collection. Well, actually, so let me take what you just said and let's segue a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, look at what we did there. But no, this has always been an interesting thing for me because collecting cards has always been my number one passion. That's why I've stuck around with it for such a long time. Mm-hmm. But my other passion is watches. You wouldn't know about it because I'm wearing a G-Shock today, just because it's convenient. I was out and about doing stuff all day, so I figured it was convenient. But I'm a big fan of Swiss watches and things like that. And it's one of those things I find it funny, and it makes me chuckle when I think about it. If I have the money sitting around, because everything's disposable income, I'm not going into debt over this stuff. It ain't happening. Not on my watch. No, thank you.
I wouldn't do that with cards. No. Nope.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't do it with anything. Like, unless I have to. Like, if I have to, so be it. If it's discretionary.
Only my student loans, dude. That's it.
Yeah. If it's discretionary, it's discretionary. It's supposed to be a hobby, then we're not going into debt for that. We're not going into debt for a hobby.
Absolutely.
But I know for a fact, and because I've done it, I know for a fact that I can walk if I have the money sitting in the account. I know for a fact I can walk into a store, see a watch I like, and drop $5,000 like nothing. I don't even hesitate. Because if I want it, I want it. And if I have the money, I'll get it.
Okay.
Spending more than a couple $100s on a card, though, I have to kind of hem and haw. Like, it's not the dollar amount. It's like a psychological barrier. Now, if it's special, if it's a little nicer, then, But,
well, I think that's interesting you bring that up because a watch is worth what it's worth. It's like buying an iPhone. Like that's the price, but with cards, we become so conditioned with, especially with eBay and its offer system to always try to get the best price for something. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. You don't go and bargain for a Mike Trout. You just pay what it's worth. Right. But when you see a Mike Modano or Jocelyn Tebow, you're like, okay, do I unless it's like a Holy Grail card, do I pay the $100 or can I get this for 80? And so that's funny that the culture of card collecting indeed has given us this idea that you're not just going to pay what it's worth. And that's a whole nother 5-hour discussion. But there are a few cards in my mind that if they show up even close to what I mean, again, you're not going to if you walk away and you lose the card for 25% of what it's worth, or like what the eBay price is, man, that would suck. I mean, especially like if that Tebow, this pops up of the platinum gold, it's going to be hard. I'm going to be hard pressed not to pay whatever the guy has it up for, unless somebody in chat's like, oh, I'll put it up for $500. Don't do that. But I think that's a really good point you bring up with the watches. You're like, you're not going in there going, I think I want this for $4,000 instead of 5. What do you say? nobody's gonna agree to that, you know. So yeah.
I just was responding to Jeremy's comment here. But no, the thing is, you're 100% right. But it is a psychological thing. It is very much like, it's one of those things. Like, I'll find myself sometimes on an eBay auction for higher end, like a more special card. I find myself kind of nickel and diming the seller a little bit. It's one of those things where it's like, is it really like, I did that literally, no joke, yesterday. I was looking at an Albert Pujols rookie because I suspect he is now one behind Willie Mays on the all-time list. And I'm sitting there like, I love Pujols. I think he's a great player. I've got a couple of his lower end rookies, and I was looking, and when I went to go looking at it, and I think it was the Topps Chrome one, which is now gone up certainly in price.
Are you talking about the one with Ichiro or the one by himself?
The one by himself.
Okay.
So this is his Chrome. I think it's card 596. So it's in the regular top set, but it was a late edition card. It's a nice card though. It's a very nice card. PSA 9. So it's, nice condition, but it was one of those things where like the price that they were asking was fair. It was a little higher than I wanted to pay, but it was fair. I literally was nickeling and diming them. And I think we were $25 off before somebody just went and just did the buy now.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, okay, fine. I understand. I get it.
I mean, but that's the thing. If that was your, like, because we all have like these levels of interest in a card when it pops up.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, like when I got into collecting Tristan Jari, for instance, I mean, I'll show his, everybody knows for any rookie, you want to get their Upper Deck the Cup patch, rookie patch auto. I mean, that's just, so it's not the most amazing patch, but it's his most expensive and highest desired rookie, right? So that card popped up, and in my mind, I'm like, all right, what level of I gotta have this? As me and my buddy Tyler always say, gotta have it. Mm-hmm. What level does that hit on? So, if the gold Tebow pops up, I'm not haggling the seller unless it's like outrageous what the price is, right? But with this right here, it's like, okay, not the best patch I've ever seen, but it's pretty nice.
No, I think you're right.
And so I didn't haggle a lot, but I definitely, wasn't gonna, and I got a great deal on that in the SP Authentic Future Watch. I got smoking deals on them in my mind.
Yeah.
So I think it just comes down to the card. If your number one Madonna popped up on eBay, there's a lot less of the haggling going on. You're like, okay, I need to do what I need to do to get this card before somebody else does. That's
I agree. It's one of those things though. You sit around and you do it for long enough. There's not going to be a lot. Like I pick up Madonna cards every week. From the same seller that I was talking about earlier, there's more coming.
Right.
Buddy has a lot of
feeling for you.
Buddy has a lot of nice stuff. And it's one of those things, like his prices are fair. So that's why I'm good with it. I'm like, look, we'll pick it up. Here we go as we go along. And if you sell them to somebody else, it's all good. There's a handful that I'm like, all right, let me get this one right now. But when it comes to like the only card left, and I thought about this some time ago, I was like, that's the reason why I started collecting certified autographs for a while, because it was like, okay, I need some kind of a challenge. It isn't just, I don't want to be, like I said, I don't know Nat Turner personally. I don't know what his collecting philosophy is, but I kind of felt like I was at the point, like, look, almost everything I want, I can get. It's not like money's no object, but I've got almost every version of a card that I can have. I've got at least one.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what would be something that I could do to be a challenge? I said, well, let me get to the century mark. I want 100 certified autos. Let me get to 100.
Good goal to have.
So I was like, it gave me something to shoot for. So I went after that. And once I got there, I was like, okay, but now what? So it was then when I kind of recommitted myself to card count a little bit, because I'm like, well, then at least I can have a little fun with this.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll pick up stuff that interests me, that I like. I don't have to get everything. It's not necessary. I don't need 50 cards a week. That's not required. It's okay.
Right.
But the only card that I can think of that it would be like, and I used the clip in one of my videos. I did the Wayne's World. It will be mine. Oh, yes. And I had so much fun with that. But it's like the only one left that is like in that category is a shield card. That's the only thing where I don't have.
That'd be a big one, man.
That's the only one I don't got. The last shield card that came up, I think, sold for just under 400 US. And the thing is, I didn't have the money sitting around at the time. Otherwise, I'd have been like, I would have done the Wayne's World. It will be mine.
Yeah, it will be mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's really good representation of that feeling.
But that's all that's left. Like from Medano, that's it. At that point, I don't have all the cards, but I have everything variety-wise that I could possibly want.
Well, can I ask you a question then? Because I'm curious. I mean, anybody that's watching here, you've amassed. I mean, it sounds like your Madonna collection is kind of similar to my A-Rod collection. I don't have that many autographs. I'd rather spend the money on an insert that I'm looking for. But how do you find yourself enjoying? How do you enjoy a collection that large?
Mini challenges, because from time to time it lets me go back and look. One of my mini challenges. So I've got like my main checklist. This is stuff I'm keeping an eye out for. And then there's like I'm not going to call it a side PC because it's in the same PC, but it's the side quest. Let's just call it the side quest. That's what it is. Yep. It's a side quest inside of the main quest. And the side quest is 97, 98. That is my favorite year in the card history of hockey. And it's my favorite year from Medano. So I go like, this is a checklist of 97, 98. I want it all. To the best of my ability, I want it all. And that is 1 year out of his entire career that spanned 20 years. But if I can get as close as possible, I would consider that a win. But that's something specific that I can zone in on. And the thing is, I've got most of them. So they get harder and harder and harder each time. That's why the Wizards was such a special card. That's why it was a #1 card, because this is one of the toughies. This is one of the super toughies for this year. It's not
when you showed that card, man, I was like, is there any goalie I can find? And of course, I don't think there is any goalies in that set. I think it's all skaters, isn't it?
I'm trying to think if there was a Waugh or Brodeur or something, because it would always be those guys.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Dave, a lot of those big cards I usually send his way. I think what goes around comes around. If he ever runs across any of my big Tebow wants and he's like, Matt, are you here? I've told him, like, look, if my Holy Grail pops up and you don't hear from me in 10 minutes, just buy it and I'll pay for it. So I tend to send those his way, but one thing that's been really cool again with your videos is I'll be watching them and say, ooh, I didn't know about this. I like the way that card looks. Let me go see if I can get any goaltender in that card rather than, obviously go get a Madonna or get a Waugh or Brodeur. I think it's been really cool to just see all these designs that don't exist in the baseball world. So that Sixth Sense Wizard, man, I was like, geez, why did they do that for baseball? That would have been amazing.
Well, I think I could be wrong. I haven't looked at one in a while, but because they had like little stars inside of the pattern. Isn't that similar to the Star Rubies? Isn't it like a little star pattern?
That's similar to the 2000 Rubies. Yeah. Which I let that one go because what's been really cool in the baseball world, I do have some good friends in there, guys that collect A-Rod, and we'll be like, look, these two big cards are up right now. You love Pacific. You go for that one. I'll go with the Rubies. That sound good? Go for it. And you're able to, save each other a little bit of money that way. So Kyle was able, the 99 Rubies, that's one of the most gorgeous cards I have in my collection. I don't think hockey, unfortunately, I didn't have a 99 Skybox set, but that would be cool to see that technology represented against. I mean, the prisms from O-Pee-Chee Platinum are close. Yeah, they're especially those red prisms out of 149. Those are very, very similar. But you're right. The 2000 Rubies is what those Sixth Sense Wizards are going. Yeah,
it's one of those things where as time goes on and I collect. That's part of the reason I like doing the videos, because it forces me to think. Kind of use the back part of my brain where like the catalog is there. There was a point earlier in my collecting where I memorized all the cards, so I could eyeball it, and I knew if I had it or didn't have it. So I eyeball it. And then I joked in one of my videos was like, this is what happens when it gets embarrassing. I have a card out of 35 in the cup with a beautiful patch, and I forgot I had it and bought another one.
I know. Well, I mean, hopefully in the future, a Madonna collector comes along on your channel. It's like, man, he was my favorite player as a kid. I love to collect him. Then you're like, well, I've got a card that'll spearhead your collection right here, buddy. I think I ended up with a lot of extra Tebow cards at one point because I ordered a lot at once. But from a site that I don't like saying what it is. You and I both know what it is, but you're able to pick up a lot of singles for very, very cheap there in bulk. And I've done a couple mail day videos of that, but I ended up with probably 10 to 15 nicer Tebow dupes. And I think because of that, it's been nice to, do giveaways on Instagram to people who will love them as much rather than just kind of hoarding dupes. So I don't know. I mean, I think there's people that like to collect in a way of getting like dupes and triplets of their favorite card, but I can't do that. Maybe the stamp of approval might be the only card I want a second of because mine has a print line on it at the top. Very subtle, but
That was one of the unfortunate things about the quality control they had going on, because the problem is they were die cut, and they're such intricate die cuts that the opportunity for chipping and stuff is like huge.
Yeah, there's none of that going on, but it's definitely the top. There's definitely a line where the color, almost like some of those star factors have on them.
That's good. That's good.
But man, they killed it with this card. I'm telling you, they absolutely killed it with that card.
But that was the thing. It's like, no, you're 100% right. It's that it's wonderful, the camaraderie in it. But I'll confess, I remember collecting Medano back in the 90s and collecting the early 2000s, because sometimes I'll watch channels, and I love watching a lot of hobby content. A lot. Right. I love it. And I'll check out a channel with somebody that's a little bit younger, somebody in the late teens, early 20s, and I chuckle because my eBay account is older than they are. My eBay account can drink legally in the States. I got my eBay account in 98. So it's like, I've had it for a long time. But so I remember back then, because I had my eBay nemesis that were fighting me on all these cards back then, I didn't have the bankroll to play. I would buy the odd card here and there, but it was cutthroat. No, we're not helping each other. It's like, I will bleed you dry. I will make you bid top dollar so you can't bid me. I'll bid me on the next one.
No, that's interesting. It's definitely, social media has definitely allowed us to, build up that camaraderie and just meet people who are like-minded collectors, and that's interesting. I remember eBay in 1996 was when I first got in there, and I remember kind of poking around and just like, geez, this is pretty crazy. And to see where it's got to now, I mean, it's the main source of picking up cards for most people.
Oh, for sure.
I think the really big cards, like you're talking about that shield, you'd have to just run across a guy who finds your channel and is like, hey, how do I get a hold of you? I've had a couple of those happen where guys have popped into the infamous Facebook group and like, who's the A-Rod collector in here, and I'm not there's a few, but I think I've built up the reputation to help people out and do the podcast and try to educate people. And so I've been fortunate enough that's allowed me to connect with people who are selling like that grand finale and a couple other pretty tough cards. That's been cool.
That's a very, very, very good. So you got a new fan. So that's Jeremy there. That's hey, like I said, it's gonna be fun. This Saturday he's gonna have. And Jeremy, I'll tell you about it later, but I'm not gonna be competing with your live stream, but I'm gonna have a live stream on Saturday. We're gonna be apparently now I'm live streaming more often. I don't know what happened. But it is an interesting one, and I'll bring it up, but I'm gonna try to make sure I don't bleed into his time period. I don't mind being a lead in. I would love to be finishing up right as he's getting started. I go, hey, check it out. That'd be kind of fun.
I have one question for Jeremy that I honestly have been thinking about. I really enjoyed the masked men sets that they've been doing the last couple of years. Well, not last year, but the year before, and then the year before that in Leaf. Jeremy, if you could ask if they're planning on doing another version of that, that would be really cool. I would love to hear that.
Well, I think I'll be like, my plan is to try. It's a timing thing, right? I will tell you, I don't want to reveal the guest yet, but I will probably tomorrow. But I know for a fact they talk a lot. So they talk a lot and I talk a lot, and it's going to be dangerous.
Okay.
We're going to start like an hour and a half before Jeremy's live stream comes. So I'm like, it's going to be tight. We'll see.
Maybe you should do 2 hours just to make sure.
Yeah, but no, the thing is, we're going to go as long as we need to go. And it's one of those things where, here's the thing. I'm not going to be offended. I will tell people when his stream starts, because I think it's going to be a very interesting stream. I will tell people when his stream starts, because I'm like, go watch that and come back and watch the replay.
Right.
Because there are questions I want to ask that I'm still going to ask, and then you guys can come back and check it out. The beauty of YouTube, you don't have to watch it in one sitting. It's cool.
That's true. That'll be cool.
It's like, no worries. I'm not going to be offended. It's going to be perfectly fine. But the reality is, and it was funny because, like I said, like I mentioned, it was cutthroat back in the day. And I made one strategic error back in the day, because back when you could see people's usernames, so you could figure out who was winning all the auctions, whatever. You could figure out who your nemesis was. Well, I had the brilliant idea to have Medano Fan 9 as my handle. Okay. So it's like, I wonder who the guy collects.
Yeah, whoops. That is kind of a tough thing to do.
Back then, it was a perfectly strategic error. It was no abort. I still have it now, but now it doesn't matter anymore. Like it hides your handle.
Yeah, but I mean, you can get pretty good about knowing whose feedback is what. I know who my biggest nemesis for A-Rod is, and so
of course,
I'm pretty only either that or the two eBay sellers for baseball who sell their cards ridiculously high. Mm-hmm. When you see one of them win one of the cards you're after, you're just like, Oh man, that hurts. It hurts really bad, but I won't even get into that. That is what it is.
I think right now it's an easier time. It's a much calmer in the Medano waters, mainly because it's like an old joke my dad did. My dad went back to Panama years ago because I was born in Panama, and obviously he was born in Panama. He went back years ago. So Carlos Sr. went back to Panama. Normal people, I want to make this emphasis, normal people go on vacation back to the homeland, go visit the family, which he did. And normal people come back and say, oh, hey, this happened with, your uncle, whoever. My dad has 13 brothers and sisters, legitimate and illegitimate that he knows of. So our family are full of characters. All of us are full of characters. But Carlos Sr. was from a long line of characters, and then I continued the tradition. But the thing is, so he comes back. First thing he does when he gets off the plane, I just told you what normal people do. Carlos Sr. gets off the plane. The first thing he says, he's like, I did it. And I'm like, what did you do? He goes, I outlived them all. And he goes, what do you mean? I checked on all my enemies. They're all dead. And I just start laughing. And I'm like, of course, this would be what you would check up. This would
the
be
the ultimate competition right there. Yeah. You've won.
He's like, you have beaten all of your enemies because they're all dead. And he checked. And the thing is, I know he checked. He probably went to the gravestone just to make sure you're there. That's right. I won.
Is this what you're segueing into your eBay enemies? You're going to track them all down and see if they're still alive?
No, but the segue here is that I've already beaten them. I think they're all dead because I don't see them anymore.
Oh, well, they're dead, or maybe, yeah, exactly. Huh?
Or they've gone into retirement, or now they're selling out to me.
Or you bought their cards. Yeah, correct. Exactly.
It's like, and I'm getting it for a much better price than I would have back in the day. Mm-hmm. So I'm not complaining. Yeah, I think I just beat them through attrition, Matt. I just beat them through attrition.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. What's really cool is to hear that, you've been collecting for as long as you have, and you found a way to keep that fresh. I mean, I did that, 2 podcast episodes ago, when I had Will and Jeremy and Tyler on, we were really Brent and Ryan is just talking about how we keep it fresh, and that's what's been interesting, is to have a guy who is mainly focused on one player. If I was still collecting air out, it would be really, really hard for me because I stick to just Mariners,
sure.
his pre-bad choices part of his career.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really not a lot left. There really isn't, base cards through big time cards. And so because of that, I think it's been cool to see you. I mean, obviously Medano has, if A-Rod was on the Mariners his whole career, we wouldn't be having this discussion. I'd be collecting Alex Rodriguez, and that would probably be it. I probably would know who you are because I'd still be collecting baseball. But I think it's been pretty cool to see that you've stuck with Medano for so long, and obviously picking up cards here and there. But it's been neat. It's been really nice to see somebody who's motivated after that long to keep collecting and have goals. Mini quests within the main quest is really something I latched onto from watching your channel and printing out the checklist and like, okay, let's go pick up a few random base cards, which that counts as a win. Like, hey, look at this. I've crossed off a few more I don't have. So yeah. I definitely didn't do that with Alex Rodriguez. I just was buying anything and everything at first. So
yeah, that's the one advantage of doing it for a long time, is that I did do that. There was a time where I would just grab anything I could. And that was like, because at that time we still had the card shops. So I'd be over there and I'd be picking through like the bargain bin to find, hey, insert, boom, perfect, insert, boom. Yeah. But after a while you run out of those.
Yeah, you do.
But the thing is, now as time goes on, I've been collecting Medano for so long. I collected for the last 15 years of his career. And then I collected 10 years past the end of his career. He's in the Hall of Fame. His number's retired, and I'm still here. But it's because I just find little things to. Every time I hit a different mountain, I hit the plateau, I find a new mountain. Yeah, I just change the mountain, change direction, do something.
That's a good point.
Make it interesting.
Well, and you've got your side stuff too that can allow you to just kind of dip your toes into the waters of Ben or just some vintage cards, and we'll convince you to get on the goalie hype train here eventually.
The only guy that I do a little bit of is that I picked up most of the Marty Turco rookies, because Turco was the guy after Belfour. After Belfour, he was the guy who had a couple of different rookies. So that's what made it a little more interesting.
There's an amaze, like with your Medano collection, there's that Turco collection on Instagram. I'm quite impressed with his collection. I mean, he's just, some of these guys on there have everything. Was that Coho Connie or something? She's big. Cujo. I mean, it's like, okay, here's a challenge to post these. And she's got the 101, the number to 10, number to 25, 100. I'm just like, some of you people that have been collecting for 15, 20 years, the same player, I definitely appreciate how long it's taken to put, because you don't just put that together in 6 months. I mean, my A-Rod collection in 4 years is quite nice, but I mean, add another, 5 more years, get me to 10 years of collecting A-Rod, then it'll look like that, like your guys' collection. It does not happen quickly. And so that's why it's been so cool to have these hockey collections come to fruition the way they have so quickly, because I've only been after them since, the whole pandemic started. So it's been pretty fun.
No, that's fair. I think that's good. But it's one of those things where, no, you're right, though. At this point, it would be very hard for somebody to come in and just like buy, unless you bought a collection. If you literally went and so let me just go quickly. Hey, Jeremy, take it easy. I'll catch you later. Well, we'll chat soon, because we're gonna have a little conversation as well. We got a couple of things we're going to talk about. But the thing is, you're right, though, because the only way you can do it basically is to buy a collection at this point. Now, mind you, as much as I enjoy Medano, and this has always been one of the fun parts of my thing, well, I converse with some of my hobby buddies offline, and they're like, well, Carlos, is there like a dollar amount where you'd sell your collection? Yeah, if Nat Turner shows up and goes a couple of million, dude, you can have it. I'll hand deliver it. I love Medano cards. Let's make this clear. I've been collecting. You can't not enjoy something and collect it for 25 years. You can't.
No, exactly.
But here's the thing. I can rebuild some really quality pieces. Nat Turner wants to buy it for a couple million. I can pay off the house, get a nicer house, get a nicer room, and then buy some other cards that I like and rebuild like a smaller, scaled down version. I could still enjoy myself.
I mean, you're right. There is a price on everything. I mean, I think maybe because you've been collecting longer, you could say this, but knowing how hard some of these 90s, inserts for A-Rod are to come by.
That's right.
I mean, it would be, unless somebody offered like $1 million, which is not even close to worth. It's not even worth.
That's what I'm referring. I'm referring to life-changing money.
Yeah.
If you bring that to the table, you bring it to the table. Like I said, if I can pay off this house, buy a better house, and buy a better room to house my new collection with the money I've got, we can talk. We'll like I said, I'll hand deliver it. It's okay.
I agree. To get rid of the student loans, if I use my cards to get rid of those, if that happened, that would be a huge stress relief for sure. But I think the cards, again, it's not just about the cards. It's what the avenues, the doors that the cards have opened. The people, the content on YouTube, the excitement over new releases, and the art, meeting an artist for Flair. I mean, come on, that's anybody's dream for any hobby that they're in. And so the avenues that have opened up, doors that have opened, have just been extraordinary. So that's I think for me, just as much, if not bigger, a bigger part of collecting than the cards themselves.
I agree. So Dr. Exclusive here has actually a very interesting question. I like this one. So this is, can you guys recommend any cool Topps Bowman Stadium Club 93, 94 through 96, 97? And there's some good ones in that range.
Let me grab my binder here.
Go for it, buddy. You're closer to arm's reach for that one, so go for it.
That's Tebow's rookie year right there, man. You're speaking my language.
Yeah. So right now we're going to use Tebow as an example here. But there's some good stuff. It kind of depends on where you want to go, Dr. Exclusive. That's kind of the deal. But yes, without question. My binder is a little too far away. I actually have within arm's reach the cup and some UD Black stuff, just in case we needed filler. I was ready to reach for it. But for that era, there's a lot of good stuff. Let's check.
I gotta double check. Didn't Topps do the premiere set? They did, right? The 94, 95 premiere.
They Topps, did. There was the Topps and also O-Pee-Chee premiere, but they're kind of like neighboring sets. But yes.
Yeah. All right. So I believe this is the Topps version, because this doesn't have any. But this was such a cool parallel. And actually, let's see if I can get the camera to focus in on it. Oh boy. Yeah, there we go. So Vinny and I were talking about these too. These are just stunning cards. The what is this called? The special edition, I believe, with that foil on there. Love those. When I've just got into picking up Tebow, I want to say that was one of the first cards that I remembered from when I was a kid that I wanted to go back and grab. So that one definitely stands out. What else do we got here?
No, I don't. I'll give you one recommendation, Dr. Exclusive, but this one's tougher. This one's real tough. And this actually, let me correct myself, Matt. Yeah. The shield is the ultimate piece that is like, it must be mine. Oh yes. That's the number one. But the number two, 96, 97 run for the cup. I still don't have the Medano, and that one, 96, 97 Black Diamond run for the cup. Those ones are special. Right. And the last time I saw one, I got outbid on it, and I'm really irritated. really agitated by it because it's one of those things where I caught it at the last second, and I was like trying to quickly just put a bid in just to get a bid in, but it's like I would have needed to be a little more aggressive, but if I had gone forward, that would have been the play.
Man,
I think to the point there's no Lemieux, but there's definitely like if you go 93, 94, Uncle Vinny's hitting it right on the head here. If you go 93, 94, there's some great Lemieux because he mentioned Lemieux. There's some awesome ones. 94, 95. It's not like the fanciest card in the world, but they had a Topps Finest in 94, 95. That was really nice. And I don't know if Lemieux was in 95, 96, but those were great. Those Topps Finest. I don't know if he was in 95, 96 though.
I do want to recommend to go beyond the 3 sets. You got to look at all the Pinnacle stuff. I mean, the photography on this is my favorite base card of Tebow. 94, 95 Pinnacle. The photography on here is great. I swear to God, my number 3 most wanted card is the artist proof version of this. I found the Tom Barrasso right when I started collecting, and I still can't find the artist proof. But 94, 95 Pinnacle, you have to go look at all the inserts, all the team Pinnacles of Lemieux. He's got some really, really cool stuff from those years.
Uncle Vinny's updating his status here. Hold on. I like that we're collaborating. I like that we're collaborating here with Uncle Vinny. He's filling us in a little bit.
I think those 93 through 95 sets, that's all Quebec Nordiques, Tebow's. There's a lot of really cool, even base cards out of those years. You can't go wrong.
Okay, so if Uncle Vinny's right on that and he was in the second, because I think that's 95, 96. If so, that was an awesome year. Because I think I'm going from memory right now. So right now I got to work with old man brain here a little bit. So from 95, 96, I think was the one where you had the bronze, silver, and gold. I think you had the multi-levels, which was an awesome set. A fantastic set.
It was.
So like there was some good stuff there, man. Those refractors from that era, really good stuff.
The only thing that sucks about it is whoever was making the checklist didn't think, shouldn't we put Jocelyn Tebow in there? He just went to the Canadians. Yeah, he's playing for Patrick Waugh's old team, and he just got traded. Let's put him into his Topps Finest. Nope. Because I think they only put, a handful of goaltenders, and he wasn't the elite. He was a couple of years, but he wasn't in one of the elites. He was just a young star. And so I think what's funny, you mentioned that Topps, I just showed it off on the podcast, that Centurion's refractor of Tebow. He didn't even make it to the base set, but he made it into an insert set and Centurions. Like, what? How'd that even happen, man? But
that mid-90s era is weird, though, with the checklists. Like, I remember the advantage that I had was that my player was the star on a team that was expanding in the South, so they needed to, promote. They needed to promote this. So he was the star on the Dallas Stars. So it's like you need – because he was the guy who made the Beckett's. Like, if you were going to have a Dallas Star on the Beckett and it wasn't Ed Belfour for some reason, it was Medano.
It was Medano. Yep.
So he was the guy at that time, and it didn't help. It didn't hurt that he was a photogenic guy. So they're like, we could put him on the cover. It's like, it'll work.
And he was a very nice guy too. I mean, he was down to earth and
that's right. So you had all the components to make it attractive to put him on there where you can.
That's a good point. I mean, as soon as I watched your channel, all my memories of watching him play and having his cards. I mean, he was one of the best skater cards to get. And he definitely a guy that I remember. It's funny you mentioned Medano. He brought him up the early years too. It was my first goaltender card I ever owned. I need to go back and find it. I believe it was a Score or a Bowman of John Casey. Yeah, and I remember I loved the color of the old North Stars jerseys. I loved the name. I think John Casey was an American goaltender too. Was he not?
I think so. I have to go. That's been a while, but I think so.
I just remember that card was that was my first hockey card I was given. I was like, this looks awesome. I remember drawing pictures of it. Anyway, really taking me back. But Medano was on that team. So it was like him, John Casey, and who else?
Well, I think at that time, I think Neil Broughton was still on that team because I think that was late in his run with the Minnesota North Stars. They were really young. It was where they had that brief cup run against the Red Wings. And to this day, Hockey Night in Canada is very happy to show the clip of Lemieux deking the entire team and just embarrassing them.
Yeah, we swept. Didn't we sweep the North Stars that year?
The thing is, they weren't a good team. It was a Cinderella story to even get there. Yeah. They had no business getting there.
Well, I didn't see again. I wasn't really into it back then. I think my first foray into the Penguins was the year after when they beat the Blackhawks. Yeah, when Yager was a rookie.
So. Yeah, the North Stars at that time are best described as basically a very quaint Washington Generals to the Penguins Globetrotter, because they could have done anything they wanted. Like they were not going to hang with the Penguins at that time. Lemieux was still at the peak of his powers. They were not going to hang with them. Lemieux could have beat them by himself, and they had a young Yager.
Right.
So it's like it's unfair.
Right.
And the things people forget, you had Brian Trottier, I believe, on that team, who was at the end of his run. So it's like, I'm sorry. How about, you know what? Brian Trottier could have beaten them. He was at the end of his run. He already had 4 Stanley Cups.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Yeah, they had a really good team those 2 years for sure. You know, had a great goaltender. Barrasso was in there, and he got it done. He was an American goalie too, by the way. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
not a lot of just hasn't been a lot of really good American goaltenders in the league for a while. You know, so it's pretty cool to go back and see that. But
I just feel bad for the Minnesota North Stars fans at that time, because they get that Cinderella story out of nowhere. They got their young star. And it's funny because his trajectory, he got to the Hall of Fame, he got his number, retired, he's fine. But I always find it funny that he lost the Calder to like a 28-year-old because he was one of the Russian players that came in. And he had a great season, but it was like they changed the rules later because they're like, you're too old to get the Calder. You were already a professional player for years in Russia. You can't get the Calder.
I see. Yeah, that is a bummer.
He was a grown man, and Modano was 19.
Who won it that year? Who was the guy that beat me down?
I think I want to say like a Karlamov or something. I don't remember the name, because it's not like he did much after that. But he like had that Calder. But it was one of those things where like, but I laugh because that was like the hardware that Modano could have won at 19, because he had 75 points as a 19-year-old rookie.
Wow.
So it was like impressive. He started off great, but then within a couple of years, so they got this young star. They got this team that gets to the Stanley Cup Finals out of nowhere. And then a couple of years later, let's just move him to Dallas. And the Minnesota guys are like, all these years, you were the chosen one.
Yeah, right.
You were in the Mighty Ducks movie. Don't leave us.
Now you got the Minnesota Wild. You know, they got the Minnesota Wild to cheer for.
Well, the thing is, I think Modano works for the franchise. I think he actually works I think he does, or at least he did for a while, because they still love him in Minnesota. Like his relationship with Minnesota is still really strong. They love him.
Yeah.
Yeah, they love him there.
That's pretty cool. Huh. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I didn't know that. I don't spend a whole lot of time looking him up. I more or less look up, see what Burroughs and Tebow and those guys are doing post career, which is cool because Burroughs is now on the Wall of Fame in the Canucks.
That's right. Yeah.
Arena, which is really cool, and to see that whole ceremony for a guy who was undrafted. I mean, his story is. I know he's not liked by everybody because they think he, at the end of his career, was dirty, which I saw the highlights, and I'll agree. I think he did some pretty stupid stuff, but he was a great
If
story.
he's on your team, you live with it.
And you love it, which is crazy because he's such a nice, off the ice, such a nice guy. He's part of the communities he was in. I mean, he just was very involved with his wife and his family, and on the ice, that's what he had to do to stay on the ice. He didn't have the talent of Modano to, just completely make people look silly out there. He had to really grind for everything that he did. So I really wish they would have won that year. My dad, big Canucks fan, and I wish they would have beat the Bruins. They were up 2-0, but lost it, man.
That was just bad luck for a lot of them, because that would have been a highlight for Luongo as well. His legacy is complicated because he was great, but it's one of those things, like he spent so much time in Florida where they were terrible, but he was great. Yeah. And then he had the run in Vancouver. He got close. It's weird.
That team was fantastic, dude. That Canucks team was. I don't think you're ever going to see a better Canucks team than the one with the Sedins and Burroughs and the Luongo and all those other great players on there. It's not going to happen. That was probably one of the better teams that never won it, in my opinion. But
that's one of those. But that's the fun part of the sport. You can play the Remember the game I played a little while ago with the 4 games. Yeah. It's like I turned a team that was great into a dynasty. All I did was fix 4 games. I just changed 4.
I know which 2 I would change for hockey now, probably the Canucks, right? But it's funny that Dr. Exclusive said that Alex did not make it into a lot of those, higher end sets. He's in Fleer Retro, but he didn't make it into that set. So I'm very lucky that he made it into the Cup that one year, that he had, what did he have that one year? He scored all those goals. I mean, he had a 35 goal, 32 assist season. And then he followed that up with 26 and 22. So he had a couple good years, so he was able to make it into the Cup. But Alex did not make it into any of those premier sets, at least into some of those high-end inserts and stuff, unfortunately. So, but that's okay. I mean, he's allowed me to pick up, some Panini stuff and and whatnot. So that's been really fun.
Well, that's the whole point, is you got to find something that makes it. Because the thing is, the story of some of those players that are not the touted guy. Like Medina was a number 1 overall draft pick. The expectation, he was supposed to be great.
It's already set. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he's supposed to be generational. And in the end, he ended up being the American Wayne Gretzky until I think Jonathan Taves breaks it. So like the time will come, or is it Patrick Kane? I forget which one of them. One of them is they're going to pass him at some point, and it'll happen. And I think it'll be all right. And the thing is, they're going to play great, and they've got Stanley Cups. They're great. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah, that's right.
Somebody sets the bar, and then somebody exceeds the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be cool with that, because it's like, hey, good job. It took you a lifetime to do it. So,
which you should. I mean, you don't want these guys given all the glory after 2 or 3 good seasons. You got a guy like, Lemieux and the modern guys of Ovechkin, Crosby. I mean, those guys have played for many, many, many years to build up that legacy. It doesn't just happen overnight.
That's right. Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, no, it's again, I like that you said that. You got to get behind the careers of these players and to find a guy that's undrafted, like Burroughs or Jari, who's been in the league for a while, been in the Penguin system and kind of waited out his time to play and shined when he's had the opportunity. I think you can get behind those kind of stories more than you can. I mean, for me personally, that's why I don't money, and also everybody else likes them, these big time guys, like a Sidney Crosby. Well, everybody knows who Crosby is. A lot of guys like him. I'm not going to collect him though. I mean, A, everybody else already does, and B, it's a very expensive endeavor to go down. So
agreed. But that's kind of why I can kind of weather the storm of today. If the prices suddenly went, it's been weird because I've been paying very close attention to the whole modern market and the way all this madness has gone. Yeah, but I keep telling people, it's like, I'm buying some of my Grail Medano cards and I'm not paying top dollar. It's not everybody. It's not across the thing is, he is fortunate for me and unfortunate in general. It's like, he's not forgotten, but he might as well be. So there's so many of these great Hall of Fame caliber players who it's like, well, we forgot about this guy. We forgot about this guy. You could collect these guys for pennies on the dollar. If they were a basketball superstar, you wouldn't even be able to touch them.
Like Mark Messier, that was a great example that Dave Archer brought up. I mean, one of the greatest hockey players to ever play, and his stuff is extremely cheap.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I mean, for every time I'm like, geez, how much did that sell for? And there's fantastic goaltenders out there, minus Waugh, Belfour, and Brodeur that sell for super cheap. Grant Fuhr is another one, man. He was. I know people debate, should he really be a Hall of Famer or whatever. He was amazing. I don't care what anybody says, but
he did his job. The key was he somebody had to stop it at the right time, and that was his deal. Yeah. He would manage. He'd find a way. He was. I'll give you an analogy that works in baseball. Yeah. Grant Fuhr is the goaltending what Jack Morris was to pitching. Because you sit there and like, well, the ERA is high. Yeah, but he kept winning. Yeah. But the ERA is high, but he kept winning. And then World Series, he would win.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great analogy, But there's some really great goaltenders that out there. Even Curtis Joseph. Sometimes some of those cards, you're like, how much is this? So I think that's what hockey again. And I kind of like to hammer home the point I've made about why hockey has been a really fun endeavor for me is I'm just so happy with the prices that I'm able to get things at, because I've conditioned myself to pick up cards at A-Rod prices. And then a Burroughs card comes up that, we're talking like a gold autograph on card at a 25 and I paid $20 for it. I'm like any day of the week, I would say yes to that price.
That's right.
So that's pretty cool.
What, man,
that's another good one right there. Yeah.
You don't want to bench scrub in basketball. Come on. That'll be like $100, $200. Yeah. The guy who gets like 5 minutes a game. Come on, man.
I know, dude. The basketball market is a whole new game. I don't even venture into there. It's like I don't even know what kind of analogy to make, but it's like going into a mall, or like one of those fashion malls in a very expensive district, and you kind of peek your head in, and you're like, "Nah, I can't afford this," and you just turn around and leave. Well, basically what the basketball market is.
Yeah, I laugh because I bought, and I think it's in my ComC order. I have to double check. It might not be. It might be my next one, but I own 2 basketball cards, and they're both in ComC. When I get them delivered, they'll be the only 2 basketball cards in my collection. Well, actually, no. Let me correct myself. I have 2 right now, and this will be the other 2. I have a Vince Carter rookie that I picked up long after the fact because it was cheap. And I was like, well, he's a Toronto Raptor for a long time. I'm like, that's cool. A Tracy McGrady rookie that was a nostalgic pick because I actually pulled it. I only bought like 2 packs of Finest in his rookie year, and I pulled a Tracy McGrady rookie. Nice. So I was like, well, I'll get another one. So I picked up like a PSA 9. It cost me like $10. It was super cheap. So that's two. And then I picked up a Jordan Skybox, which was like that funky Skybox with like the bronze borders. It was like 9091.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I picked it up just because the Jordan insanity happened during the Last Dance.
Yeah.
I picked it up for a whopping $4. So I was like, I'll pay $4 for the Jordan, sure. And a PSA 10 was going for like 150. I just wanted to have it as a souvenir of the madness that was a brief moment in time. And I bought one other basketball card because I saw it on ComC and it was $5. There was a Tim Duncan SPX rookie. And I was like, well, Tim Duncan's kind of good. He kind of won 5 titles.
Kind of good. Yeah,
he's kind of in the Hall of Fame. He's kind of in the Hall of Fame. And I'm like, it's $5. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to do with you basketball guys. When Bowl is like $600 and Tim Duncan's $5, I'll buy it for $5. Sure.
I don't. That was one thing Brent brought up, Near Mint Musings. He goes, yeah, Kyle Lewis has a good week, and now this rookie, he had 2 rookie cards that were $20 each, and he went and resold one for like 80 of one of his dupes, but I'd buy basketball to sell. Yeah. Yeah,
I don't blame him. I bought the Tim Duncan because I was like, well, one of two things is going to happen. Either eventually somebody will realize that Tim Duncan was a good player. They'll be like, oh, wait a minute. Wasn't he a good player? Yeah, I think he's in the Hall of Fame. Wait a minute. And then I'll be like, yeah, I'll sell this back to you guys for a multiple of what I paid for it.
It's kind of the same in baseball, though, man. There's some guys in the 90s that sell for really cheap. And you're like, like Greg Maddux, like one of the best pitchers of all time. One of the best pitchers ever.
I love Maddux. He was so good when he was at his best.
I mean, his stuff is stupid cheap, at least compared to some of the guys that I see sell for. So
I think pitchers are really low. Like pitchers on the whole. Nolan Ryan is kind of high because Nolan Ryan was great. People love Nolan Ryan, so I get it. But like he's pretty high for a pitcher. Randy Johnson is okay-ish, depends on the card. But most of the other, and the thing is though, we're talking like the dominant guys of a generation. Nobody's going to get the 300 wins anymore.
No,
they don't pitch enough games.
No.
And then go look at Greg Maddux. He has like 350 wins. It's stupid. Nobody is going to touch that.
No,
not now.
He was just one of the most accurate pitchers ever on a great. He played for Braves that were always competitive.
Yeah.
And all you needed was about 3 or 4 runs for him and pretty much got the job done.
He was a machine. No question.
And then because he was able to pitch so deep into his career, and that was another big one too, which is something I'm fascinated with in hockey. Is just some of these guys play for so long. I'm like, geez, you look at like football, for instance. I mean, some of the best players, their careers are not very long. It's very short lived, but it's cool to see some of these hockey players. Like I was just listening to some interviews with Ryan Miller. I mean, geez, the guy looks like he's 45 years old. I don't know how old he really is, but he's been around for a while. He's still playing.
Well, Uncle Vinny brought up a good name in the vein of what you're talking about. This isn't one of my segues, but it's a good one because you led me into it. Yeah. But Uncle Vinny brought this up, Yager. And Yager is the greatest enigma for me. The greatest enigma. Mm-hmm. Because Yager had 2 careers. I don't know if you remember kind of the way that obviously the Penguins years, we know that. He was great.
Right.
He was the only scoring champion for a long time that wasn't Lemieux or Gretzky. Like he was like the only guy that wasn't those guys for a long period of time. For a stretch, it was Lemieux, Gretzky, and then Yager showed up. I'll win a couple. Nobody else can even come close. It's just going to be the 3 of us. We'll win scoring titles. We'll trade them off.
Mm-hmm.
And then Yager has this entire bit. And then he kind of like gets bored. And then he wants to leave Pittsburgh. And then he plays well, but like by his standard, not even close.
Yeah.
And then he goes, all right, you know what? Peace. I'm out of here. He goes to Europe for a while, comes back and he goes, actually, I'm still pretty good. And then he just keeps playing into his mid-40s. And I'm like, what are you?
Yeah.
Like, dude. And I said, do you realize, and he frustrates me because I'm like, do you realize how you're already up there? Like if you go look at Yager's stats and goals and stuff, he's already up there anyway. But imagine if he had given a crap for the entire middle part of his career when he was in his prime, and he hadn't just ran away to Europe for 3 years, at the late part of his prime, and had given a crap during that period. Because when he came back, he was a workout machine. And I'm like, where were you in your 20s and 30s when you would have been the 900 goal guy? If it's not Ovechkin, it would have been Yager.
Right.
And he would have gotten to 2,000 points. He would have been like the only other dude.
Yeah.
And it's like, Yager's perplexing. He's so bizarre.
No, that's a good point. I mean, I think it's just crazy that he and Lemieux were on the same team for a while. How'd that happen?
But that's the way it worked out. But the thing is, the bottom line with that was, though, that You think back, and Yager played during that offensive era where there was a lot in that 90s. The reason why Ovechkin is going to be interesting, and here's the thing, I'm not an investment guy per se, but I'll make this easy. If you can get an Ovechkin Young Guns rookie, you may as well, because it's going to go up. Because the closer he creeps, he's going to get to 800 goals. And when he gets 800 goals, people are going to be like, wait a minute, he has 800 goals. Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Because he's the only guy anywhere in that echelon, only guy who didn't play in the 70s, 80s, or 90s. He's the only guy.
That's a good point.
Because nobody scores like that anymore.
No.
And he's consistent. He just kept scoring year after year after year and just kept going and going and going.
Yeah.
And it's like, it won't happen again. Like, you're seeing something that will not happen. It's a freak occurrence.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. That's another good point there by Dr. Thusiv. Yeah. I mean, Dominic kept himself in fantastic shape. You know, that's the one thing I've noticed, other than a select few. A lot of these hockey players post-career keep themselves in really good shape. You know what I mean? Right. I think it's pretty impressive. You know, where we see some other sports guys quit playing and they kind of, you know, aren't in good shape anymore. A lot of these hockey guys are just constantly keeping themselves in good shape. So it's not impressive that they can play so long into their career, you know, that's for sure.
That's right. That's right. Now, Matt, I've got one more card maybe that I'll show off. So here's the thing. We're approaching 2 hours.
Yeah.
I'm good for a little bit longer if you want, or we can kind of start wrapping it up if you want. It's really up to you.
It's about time. Cause Perfect. You know, 4 hours behind you, about time to go make dinner. So
no worries.
A few more minutes would be good.
That sounds good. I just wanted to we make sure we're on the same page, and I'm good with it. I'm good.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
So let's do this. So I'm going to show 1 or 2 more cards. I'll play off a little bit about what we talked about the cup, because I love the variety of stuff in the cup. And there's a lot of different stuff, because this was in my top 10 because it's an unusual card. Right. And because I just enjoy it. So I'm just going to make it full screen here. So I'm just going to put you back because your audio drops out when I make it full screen. So
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, but the thing is, this is a piece of sterling silver. So it's just kind of an interesting card that they bought, that they decided to put a piece of sterling silver on a card. It was just kind of an unusual piece in that I really hadn't seen that before. I this one. And the thing is, I bought one of the first ones that showed up on eBay because I think, if memory serves me, I think I paid like 40 or 50 bucks. And the next one like went much higher, like comfortably, because they're only at a 15. So there's no
gotcha.
So it's and it is a legitimate piece of sterling silver on the card. So
it's like, pretty cool though. But again, hockey is neat because they do stuff like that. You know, you don't see, because, you know, Topps is the only people making baseball.
Yeah.
You know, or licensed baseball, you don't see those companies, you know, going that route. You see a lot more just kind of generic, and, you know, if they manufactured patches or those Topps, they got that card with the, what is it? It's like a big old piece of like not a pog, but like a really big thick coin, jammed in the card with the picture on there. You know, it doesn't really do much for me.
No, that's fair. And I think though it'd be hard because the Commissioner's Trophy isn't as photogenic. It's a cool trophy, but it's not like the Stanley Cup just has that, like, it's built-in prestige, but just the way it is.
That's
like, it's so big and so absurd. If you really think about how absurd it is, it's like this. You put this trophy in the middle of a room, and everyone's just like,
"Yeah, I love it though. It is iconic. I do love. That's a great point you brought up. Yeah, definitely.
It just stands out, and it's one of the things that they have going for them. They've marketed it so well. They've done such a good job with it because it's unique. It's different.
Good point.
So, if you got any other card, we can do that. Otherwise, I got one more late 90s, early 2000s. I'm going to say early 2000s. I'm going to call this one.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't showcase Pacific real quick. I mean, anybody that's watching that wants to kind of jump into the hockey realm, you'd be doing yourself a disfavor if you did not check out the variety of Pacific. And you and me had a really fun discussion with this card here. I'll just use this one. Is in baseball, they never did a serial number set to their jersey number in Pacific for baseball, but in hockey, they decided to do it with the platinum blue. And you and I think, got it from the same seller, didn't we?
I think I think a lot of them came up all at the same time. And I think Dwayne, I think commented on my video because a whole lot of them came up all at the same time.
Did, yeah.
And yours is an awesome one. But the thing that made me laugh, because again, where I was saying like Grails showing up, like that had eluded for years. There are certain cards, and I'll give you one card at the end that's a shockingly rare card given this print run. But that card out of 9 is just silly. Like it's too hard. Like it's jersey numbers, number 9.
Yeah.
Like it's been years since I've seen one. So that was a, it will be mine. It's like, no, guys, I'm just going to hit bid and just put a really big number here. And I think I won it for probably 30% of what I bid.
What did yours? It was up on auction. Oh, because I think mine was up.
Oh,
on
you know what? It was.
auction,
It was the best offer. You're right. It was
right,
the best offer.
right. Because that guy, mine at least was best offer, and it was funny. I gave an offer, and then he offered a price, and I offered a little bit lower, and he offered the same price. I was like, well, okay, that's what it's going to take to get.
Yeah,
it
you win.
done.
Yeah.
At
least he engaged you though, because I've seen some where they don't bother to do the counter, and I was like, well, at least come back. Yeah, at least come back and throw something at me. Why not?
I always do that when I sell stuff. I mean, I don't think it's fair not to. That's why you put best offer on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or the guys put a best offer. The card's worth like 20. They have it listed for 20 or best offer, and the offer doesn't send through until you send like 17. It's like, well, just put a $17 buy it now. Like, I don't know, whatever.
That's right. You're right. You're right.
That's your own style, man.
So I'll stick to Pacific. You made a good pick there. So you guys covered the Kramer's Choice, which is an awesome group of cards.
Oh yeah,
you did a good job.
Especially that's my like holy grail with Pacific. I love those.
No question. Now, in 2000 Crown Royal, you had the large Kramer's Choice.
Yeah.
Yes. The regular one looks awesome, but they had some color parallels.
Well, I'm hoping you're going to show what I think you're going to show. Let's see it.
So let's do the gold.
Oh man.
Out of 10.
Look at that. Can I just comment on the bottom part there?
For sure.
Is that just like a castle type thing? Is that what's going on there?
I think so. It's here. I'll zoom in a little bit.
Yeah, because baseball didn't do that with their jumbos. So I love the way that looks.
Yeah, design-wise, I think they did a great job on these, but they are absurd. Like they're so big and like they don't fit into you have to get one of these top loaders because the damn thing is absurd. Like it's not a comfortable card to house anywhere. Yeah. It's like, where do you put it? Like you almost have to frame it. Like you don't have a choice. And the thing is, I don't come across these much anymore. So when I saw the gold is one of the tougher ones. So I'm like, all right, we got to do this. Like,
yeah, got to do it for sure.
Yeah. So I'm still looking for I think there's a purple, there's like a green, there's a couple.
Yeah, I have to look at the checklist. Hardly at all of anybody.
No, they're tough, but they look fantastic blown up to that size. They're kind of cool. Mm-hmm. They're very sweet. But that was like right at the end of the 90s, early 2000s. Pacific was still doing it with stuff like this.
Right.
Good stuff, guys. Good stuff.
Man, I'm so glad Pacific kept making hockey cards. I was kind of in the background, knew that they were doing it. And once I finally decided to go after hockey, and of course, Tebow was playing for the Blackhawks, which is a well-known franchise. They weren't very good for a couple of years, but once they became good again, it was 2003, 2004 when Jocelyn was an all-star. Mm-hmm. He was in a lot of Pacific stuff.
Now, does Tebow have any kind of because the patch cards for the Blackhawks are legendary when you can get a good patch piece of the Blackhawk. Because there's some good ones. In the crease, but the masked men. Sorry. Mm-hmm. So the masked men, I know they've got a jumbo patch of him that was purchased, but there's a few from that set that have that Blackhawks head in there for sure. Pacific might have a couple. Most of the patches I've seen of him I think I have one that's got like a sliver of the yellow in there, but there definitely are some really nice ones that have been purchased. If you go on Worth Point and you look up pictures of old cards, you can find them. So I'm waiting for just a knock your socks off patch. I wish they would have done what Ultimate Collection did in 2008 for baseball, where they did those jumbo patches. Yes,
because there's an Ankiel one that with the bird of the Cardinals, that's just like, oh my gosh. So yeah, something like that with the Blackhawks would be ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that's a worthy side quest, just inside of the general checklist.
Yeah,
it's like find one like proper Blackhawks patch piece, because when it's done well, if you get the right piece of it, the colors and all, it pops off the card. There's so many good ones because that's what the Blackhawks, that logo is perfect for it.
It is. Yeah, I have to say, I search, him on eBay many times a day. Mm-hmm. And if I see something I don't have, I usually go after it. One thing that's been kind of funny, I was having this discussion the other day with some friends is, he was really frustrated. My buddy Eric was really bummed. He's like, I can't believe I missed out on that Maddox. Dang it, And one thing that's been nice about collecting, Burroughs and Tebow and now Glasnow and of course still A-Rod and Ankiel. If I miss out on one of those cards, I'm bummed. Don't get me wrong, unless it's like a holy grail, then I'm just devastated, right? Sure. But it allows that to be easier. You know, like if I missed out on a Tebow a couple weeks ago, I was like, that doesn't happen much. I guess there's one other guy out there. I don't know who he is, but that's cool. All right, on to the next one. You know, whereas if Tebow was my only guy, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So it definitely eases the pain, I guess, because you can't win them all. You can't.
That's fair. That's fair. No, that's fair, Uncle Vinny. But I think it's one of the manufacturer just isn't the same. You just know it's like the game used piece is just that it's kind of a centerpiece card. Like if you can find a proper one that's game used and you know it, it's a centerpiece card. You put it right there. Like I said, my number one card wasn't like a super patch card, and I've got some nice ones. That it wasn't the number one card. It was that Wizards just because of what I know about it, but it's also an aesthetically beautiful card.
Well, I think this, I have my shelf. I've showed this already. If you want to zoom in, I can show this closer. This is on my display shelf for a reason. I mean, these are stealth printed out of 10, and they're very, very desirable cards for any goaltender collector, but it's got a piece of every part of his gear. And I know you're familiar with these, Carlos, and you don't collect goalies, but the complete package cards are way up there for any goalie collector. Yeah, it's a centerpiece card for me.
Yeah, they've got the complete jersey cards for the skaters. Same concept. They get with the fight strap and the different components of it. So no, in the game was very good for that. One thing though that I still hate, I hate that they didn't number them. I'm like, guys, I know what the print run is, but at the same time, if you put the number on it, we can be like, the thing is, the serial numbering isn't so much for that. It's like, it's just so we know you didn't backdoor them.
Well, as much as I will agree with you on that, at least from what I've seen, I haven't seen too many of those out there. And so for that, it allows me to maybe get those for a little bit cheaper.
Agreed.
I've got a lot of dual memorabilia pieces or jersey cards from that are numbered, like printed out of 70 or less, like the goalie blocker cards. Those are some of my favorites in Tebow from there. They're really limited, man. They're like out of 50 or less. I got them for like less than $10 each. That's pretty cool. If
the bargain hunting,
50, that would hurt it. So
the bargain hunting possibilities are wonderful. You're right.
Yeah.
And like I don't know if you've come across them yet. I don't know if any of your players or your goalies or whatever were in the game used, like the first few years of that.
There was a Tebow that popped up, and I was like, oh man, Carlos showed these off, and it was Tebow and I think Eric Daze or something. And they were in. It was like he had his. I think it was actually Tebow and like some vintage goalie. He had his mask off, and I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I like seeing him with the mask on, or at least on the top of his head. So I passed, and somebody bought it pretty quick.
No, that's fair. But what I'm saying is, if they do have, so if they've got cards like that on the checklist, one thing you want to look out for, because some people, to your point about being stealthy, they don't label them properly. The gold versions are super subtle. Like it's so light. It's not like they make it obvious. What I'll do actually in an upcoming video, I have some copies of that. I'll put the regular version and the gold side by side. On some of them, it's obvious, and some of them it's not.
Okay, that'll be really good to know for me.
Like it's really, some of them it's like a tint, like it's super light, and then you sit there and you're like, actually, you got the 1 out of 10. By the way, that's the gold one.
That's cool
because it's super. But again, they don't number it, so you have to know what you're looking at.
Right. Well, that's what's fun for me, though. Being a teacher, I kind of have that lifelong learner mentality, and so rediscovering hockey has been really a lot of fun because I'm still learning new things. Like, oh man, that's cool. That card is that complete package. The card looked cool, and I got it, and then I figured, oh my gosh, figured out it was out of 10. Like that makes it even more special. So it's fun to know because then again, you can kind of hop in on some stealthy purchases that even the seller doesn't know it's the gold out of 10 type thing. So
it can be done, but it's one of those things like I only know because when the product came out, I started the process of trying to get him a run of the Medanos, and I got pretty close, and I have a bunch of them. I still have them, but it's one of those ones where that set was super tough back in the day. And I just remember going like, Jesus. And sometimes I'll see them and I'll pick up ones here and there, but it's like, there are like 30 cards in this stupid set. Memorabilia, autograph memorabilia. I'm like, the autograph jersey's out of 10. This one's out of 10. This one's out of 10. Like, you guys are killing me, man.
Right. Well, hey, it gives you something to keep chasing, right? You're not going to be sitting there without the whole set, or you're going to be sitting there with the whole set. You have something to go grab still. I mean, that always is nice. Those rare cards are definitely fun to chase.
Yeah, that's what made that New Relief signatures subset satisfying because I was like, okay, but also at the same time, I'm like, I'm never doing this again. We're not doing multiple one of ones. Screw that. We're
Yeah,
not doing it.
that's
We're not
kind
doing
of tricky. That's kind of tricky for sure. Well, like Mass Men's the same way. You know, there's 2 other Tebow 101s out there that
Mhm.
I don't know where any of them are. I mean, I doubt I'll ever see another one. It was cool to be able to pick one of them up. But yeah, some of those Leaf sets. I mean, they're parallels to Chase. Yeah, good luck with that, man. Good
Yeah,
luck.
that's one where at some point I would like to be like, so seriously, Brian, what were you on? Because it's like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
I don't remember how many. I want to say it's like 6 or 7 parallels.
Yeah, that
But
sounds
like
about right.
the most popular, the biggest population one is 15. And I'm like, come on, man. Like that's the most common version.
Yeah, they did that with that 101 I showed. I think there's a version out of 2, a version out of 3, a version out of 5, version out of 7, out of 9. It's like, dude, holy moly. And then the people put these outrageous buy it nows. And so I missed when the product came out because you could pick up a lot of those for pretty cheap. And now the only ones that are left are high bins, you know.
Yeah, but I think Brian will be very proud that he induced rage in me once I realized what that checklist actually, because then at that point I started buying some of the cards out of spite because I have the 2 one of ones. Fine. I got all the other ones to fill in. I have both the 1 of 2s. I'm like, screw you all. No one gets to finish it but me. That's it. You won't even have a chance if you get the other 1 of 1. I'm giving you nothing.
Out of spite.
It's spite. It's pure, unadulterated. I don't need 2 of 2s. It's not necessary. But I'm like, no, this is spite. This is just anger.
Well, if I could ask him a question, I would say, so any more? I know, because I imagine they put Tebow in all those sets.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, because he's got a bunch of memorabilia of his, which is pretty cool. But I'm hoping he ends up throwing Jari and one more sets. All right, I'll answer this question real quick. I have a nice, I'm gathering some really cool Marc-Andre Fleury cards. I have over the last few months. A lot of those exclusives out of 100 and some numbered cards. I've got a few of his masked men cards and stuff. But I think the reason I didn't decide to go all in on Fleury, even though I would love, here's a jersey of his prices are pretty high. Once he went to Vegas, that fan base jumps all over his cards, and while I have a couple really nice autograph pieces of him, I think it's financially it made more sense to go after Tebow, especially because he's in the 90s, and I'm very familiar with that. So that's why I made that decision. But I still love grabbing his cards here and there. I will definitely say, okay, I like the way that card looks, and so I'll pick that up, rather than, oh, I've got to just grab anything of his that's numbered. I just kind of go for visual aesthetic over rarity with his cards.
That is fair. Well, I think that's a good spot, Matt. I think we're solid on that one. So that is a good opportunity to wrap it up. We'll finish off here quickly. So you've been watching, hopefully, the whole time. Scrolling on the bottom is Matt's Instagram, and you can see Essential Credentials on YouTube.
I've got a lot of notifications, so it's got to be in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool.
So it's all there, which is perfect. So you guys have been able to see it. And for this will be an Easter egg because we only mentioned it 2 times. Do the 90s group one more time because there's only 2 people watching. Go ahead and throw it in.
Okay, so it's for anybody watching now and going to be watching later. It's the 1990s through 2004 rare insert group for baseball.
Nice.
Super high knowledgeable guys in there. I think it's a great place for showcasing. I think, PSA, if you're looking to sell your 90s stuff, those guys have created a rare 90s for sale group that we'd be welcome to let you come in and sell off some stuff. But I think the majority of the guys that were coming in at the end of the last few months here have been, here's what I have, what's it worth type thing, which I think they'll be happy to tell you, but it's more of a showcase group. So Anyway, there you go.
Perfect.
I've thrown in my head around a lot of times with Dave, and I know we've talked about it, as trying to do a Facebook group for hockey, but at this point I'm very tied up in my endeavors. So it'd be like, man, I don't know if I could manage that as well, but maybe someday it'd be fun to venture off into that.
Well, I think for that one for Facebook, I would be shocked if there weren't already some really passionate and good ones already kind of set up that at least lay the groundwork.
Right.
I'd be shocked because you've seen how passionate they are. I don't doubt they're out there.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I've kind of poked around, but the Instagram scene seems to be where a lot of the action is at. So I think that for me is good enough for now. Maybe we can venture off into that in the future. I'd be happy to help out with something like that, but we'll see.
Sounds good.
So,
thanks, Uncle Vinny, for that. And thanks, Matt, for coming on. This is actually the first live I've done in 5 years. 2 hours kind of flew by. 2 hours flew by. And this is the first time we actually had a chance to talk face to face rather than through comments. So that's been kind of good. It's been kind of fun.
Excellent.
We'll definitely do this again at some point, but now we've at least gotten the ball rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And thanks again for taking the time to have me on, dude. I appreciate being a guest. You know, a lot of my live shows are me being the host, and it was nice to not be in charge of putting everything together and just show up, you know?
Yeah. Well, it gave me a chance to play around with all this. This is great compared to those earlier days I was talking about with the Google Hangouts. This is pretty fancy stuff, like the stuff you can do here.
No, I like it. I'll definitely have to figure it out. I mean, if you can figure out how to get the music to play with like a timer showing up, like the share screen with the timer without, because I was dealing with a lot of audio issues. You just can't hear the song, kind of fades in and out. That would be excellent. But
I think I've got an idea, but I just didn't want to try to roll anything out on this one. On the maiden voyage, I didn't want to be trying to throw that out there, but I'm going to play around with it a little bit and see, but I think I have a notion of how to do it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I look forward to seeing your next interview, and thanks again for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
That is awesome. Thanks very much. Guys, Uncle Vinny, Dr. Exclusive, you've been hanging out for a good chunk of this. Jeremy earlier on, appreciate all of you. Whoever catches it down the road, if you got any questions or comments, just throw them in there. And already you've got all the contacts of everybody right here on the screen. So if you want to reach out to us, those are the best places. Sounds good? All right. Absolutely. So we're going to hit the little end button and see. That'll take us